All right, I'd like to call the Village Council special meeting September 14th, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. Right now it is 2:40. I show we have a full quorum. Not a full quorum right now. We're only missing Council Member Jamie Lyon. At this time, he may be joining us. So, first up, we have the adoption of the agenda. Do we have anything?
Need to
Can't
make
add anything?
you need to make a motion to allow Bob to participate.
Oh, we'd also need to make a motion to allow Bob to participate remote.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so any changes to the adoption of the agenda?
Well, let's hope not, because otherwise we're wasting our time.
Yeah, let's make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Motion passes. All right, so I'm not sure how we want to kind of start this and stuff. I know we invited you all back to come back and discuss what potential there could be. And Christine, I don't know if you've spent any time with them. I certainly haven't. And that's one thing I will want to encourage as we go forward with this kind of stuff. And I haven't said this, but we kind of got our hands slapped in the past is any council member kind of on their own. I'd strongly encourage you, if you are going to talk to landowners, to bring either a staff member with you or another council member and have conversations. It's totally fine, but as long as another council member, I think we have that as a policy anyway. So just a friendly reminder. I certainly haven't had any personal conversations with you on this, other than years ago we had a meeting. We talked about a little bit of your history in the town and stuff. So. I guess I want to throw it out. I don't know if there's any format to this or...
I can start it off. I guess,
Okay, that'd be great.
Introducing the situation.
Okay.
So,
Situation.
well, sure, of course. To be succinct. So Tim Fincher is here. He owns the 13 acres at the corner of Waxhaw Marvin Road and Newtown Road. It's currently a farm right now, and the topic of discussion is to locate the town hall on that property. So I have it pulled up here so we can take a look at it.
And they're listed as two separate parcels, correct?
They are,
Okay.
but he owns them both.
Okay.
They're contiguous. This is also, this is a separate discussion, but it's also part of the boundary of the Village Center District. So there may be a phasing of this. We're hoping to have the Village Hall sooner than later, and the Village Center could be a phase 2 that ties into it. But today, I guess we're just here to talk about, our interests, your interests, and just see where that goes.
And keep in mind, we've been kind of encouraging all the landowners that are along this strip to kind of either reach out to us or we're reaching out to them. We looked at the corner, we donated that property on the corner, and that doesn't necessarily mean that's where town hall goes, but obviously when we got the bids back, it's public record, they were almost twice as much as what we expected. So we're looking at all options, wanting to make sure we explore all options with all landowners and stuff. So we're happy that you're here and maybe can shed some light on what maybe your thoughts are on this.
It is, but it's 3D.
I liked overlaying that on, if you look at Matthews and what they can fit in that, what was it, how many acres?
That was also 13 acres.
About 13 acres. Not that we could create that same thing here or would want to, but it at least gives you an idea of how much land and space is available for that particular corner. So, do you have any opening comments, remarks, or?
Just again, thanks for having us. And this, as land gets bought up and smaller parcels, larger parcels, or bigger targets, there's a limited amount of time that, I'm trying to keep it in the family. About the only way I know to keep it in the family is to develop it, work with Marvin, maybe maybe a good site for a village hall, but make it more. I've felt all along, if you're going to make Marvin a true village, there needs to be a destination point in it, someplace, and that would be like a town hall, and some type of economic engine to drive the piece of dirt to make it a tax producing revenue place that Marvin could get revenue from to improve the tax base. You got a wonderful tax base with the big houses all down here. But I think it lends itself to a well thought out commercial development at this corner, I believe. And it's flat. You could, I just envision you could cut a street or maybe two down the middle or whatever. George is the developer. I've worked with George on several projects. George Dewey, he's the CEO of Aston Properties. He helped develop a piece of our other family farm. They call it McKee Farms. And over a period of time, worked that in where it was a Publix grocery store there now, CVS, Char Bar, some restaurants. It's right next to it was the largest Y in the country. I don't know what it is now with the COVID numbers, but the Brace Y is what it is now. And then it also transitioned into some pinwheel houses. So, and there's some offices in the middle of it. So that's a bigger piece of acreage than what this is, but
Not
But,
that area. Right.
anyway,
So
that's-
it's McKee Farms.
that's
That area.
where I
Yeah.
worked with George on that and a couple other things. George and Aston have also done, Colony Ray, what is it, Colony at Ray?
Colony Place.
Colony Place at Ray Road and, Colony Road up in Charlotte near Calvary, if you know where that is.
Yep.
Yep.
Just north of
It's a Harris
Calvary, on the
It's a-
right there.
Yep,
It's
it's
a
a
Harris
well
Teeter.
farm, Harris Teeter there,
Yep.
a lodge.
That's nice, that's a nice development.
It's
you guys
really
have.
nice.
We
So,
do.
in other words, they build quality stuff. George's a local boy. His folks live here and they're here for the long run. I've been approached by people from other towns, other cities or whatever about wanting to do something, but I'm just kind of a local kind of guy. So, what he's done is very aesthetic. He's got a fountain down here at the retaining thing. He has open air where people come from Dunkin' Donuts and what you call it, they keep kids down there, get donuts and ice cream. Anyway, it's you know, it can be a cool gathering place.
Yep.
And I'm not, in any of these things, I'm, like I was saying, I'm kind of simple. I can't tell you what will work best for Marvin, but you want to do it right. And like Jamie was saying, you got one time to do it right. So that's, and that, but if, I've got something to kind of pass on to the kids and the sisters and their kids, that's what we're kind of all about. The kind of coincidental thing about it too, is that the piece of land that we bought to square up our piece was Mr. Bud Ray's land. He owned that 4.5 acres that Rhodey showed right up there. And his grandkids inherited it. The day my daddy died, Mr. Bud Ray was over there at the house with a cake he had made. And George remembers Mr. Bud, he dealt with him at Colony Place. So he worked with Mr. Ray back before any of this was even thought about. So it's kind of interesting how there's a
The Rays own a lot of land.
I know, but that, well,
They own the land.
Bud and Miss Catherine Ray lived right there next to Colony. You got that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They own the land at Colony and Ray as well, where we developed, and I got to know Mr. Ray, and he passed away. And I ended up buying it from his daughter, Jane Clute, who I think you may have dealt with.
Knew her.
Jane.
We had Mr. Bud and
On
Miss
that piece,
Catherine.
this
I'm
piece
in the
more-
insurance business. We'd insured them for a long time. I'd known him a long time. I thought it was kind of interesting that he had owned this piece of land that we'd squared up with ours. So, I don't know how long he had had it, but anyway, it's the last of the Ezel land. So on the
And
corner.
I'll just add one thing. I think the scale of what you're seeing, I wouldn't focus on that because this site's smaller than these sites.
Right.
Actually, technically, this site's only 10 acres, but the scale of it's larger. I mean, you know, Harris Teeter's 50,000 feet. You
Right.
know, Both McKee and Publix is 50,000 feet. So I think that's bigger than what you, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think we talked about what our ordinance would even allow, right? I mean, technically, we're in the 5,000 per building square foot in that range, I thought.
We don't have an ordinance yet for this district, so.
Okay.
We're in the process of making it through the strategic plan committee. But yeah, so primarily in our conditional district, which will be the basis for this village center, it says primarily 5,000 square foot
Okay.
tenants.
Okay.
So real quick, if you back up to that parcel of land that they have,
Yeah.
and can you show us where the access on water and sewer would be, and where we would
I'll
be
need
tying into?
I'll need a minute for that. I can show you roughly that the water goes along Waxaw Martin Road, takes a right at Newtown, and then goes up to Martin School. So there is water along this property. To get to sewer, we'd either have to connect into Providence down south, or the same stub that we were going to connect into in the Baxter Preserve. But if you give me 1 second, I will pull up.
Water runs down this side of Waxaw Marble.
Right.
It runs
Which
in my
side?
front yard, and runs all the way down. This side.
This side, oh, that's good.
So it's on your property.
There was a force
Right away.
main
There's a
that,
force main though going to Waxhaw, right along Waxhaw Mall.
Right, but you can't tie into that for sewer. I have already asked about that.
okay.
Well, PDS seems like that'd be a lot easier than go through the reserve and then
Why can't you
across a
tie
bunch
into
of.
it?
Was the force main typically,
So
It's
but
at,
I think there was something.
it's at
about
the
that.
preserve.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. I'm pulling it up right now.
Huh?
Sewer down
Tom
the
Scott
preserve.
came to you
I don't know, if
and
we
asked
can get it
you
through
for that.
PDS, I'm sure that
Yeah.
that
He's-
neighborhood, it has
didn't,
sewer and that's way
yeah,
closer
Bill
to.
Ruley,
So here's where the sewer ends
Four times
at
shot.
Providence
Maybe
down
so.
south.
yeah.
It's right across the road from this property.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that is way easier.
Tom
Yeah,
Scott.
the other option would be to come
Property.
in.
Don't you think that'd be
Yeah,
easier?
I think
we would
it
go
would.
into, I think with that makes it
PDS.
so much easier.
Right?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, that's
tie
right
in
there.
from right there.
Is
Right.
that,
So
oh,
you're
that's,
you're
oh,
very,
that's right behind the
and you're saying the
clubhouse.
water line is on your side of the
Oh,
property?
yeah, and that's in the county right of way there too, isn't it?
It looks
Close
like
to
it. It looks,
So which one's
Oh,
the water
looks
line
like
is
it's on
on
the
the
far side.
opposite
water,
side?
yeah, water
across.
looks like it might be on the far
Okay, so
side.
water and
Across
sewer
to
have to go
somewhere.
under the road,
Oh, there it
obviously.
goes, right
it
there.
crosses here.
Ah,
Okay, yeah, I see, because it's on my side and
okay, so then they continue it.
on,
They can
on this
continue.
side.
That's
in
fine.
front of
You
my
That's
house.
fine, you can
Where-
bore
where
under
do you
for
2012 Waxaw Marble.
very,
And that's,
A lot
Across from
less than.
Yeah.
Sedgefield.
bringing it from
Yeah.
somewhere.
okay, on down the road.
Yeah,
So
we're
it's-
down
I
a
got you.
bit.
So-
but-
We're okay from relatively okay from a cost standpoint,
Right.
how far we are
Oh,
going
that
with.
goes through the traffic
water.
circle.
Way better.
That's good.
Yeah, that's very good, yeah.
Why are we not
Goes through
pulling,
the
why are
traffic
we not
circles.
pulling
I
water
just
through
was
there?
looking at that.
Yeah,
thinking the
for
same
the
thing.
current site, we're pulling the water from right here.
Okay, well, the water line runs through our traffic circles.
Right, so
Mhm.
We
can we
could,
just tap into it and get our irrigation
meter,
right there?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Oh,
They
you
just
mean
have to
around
install
it.
meter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that was the plan.
They just have to.
No,
They,
the
they
original,
charge a lot for the tap fee is what it is. The
Yeah.
Tap fee is like a couple $1,000.
yes, it is. Well, the reason, so one of the things was the tile that we put in was for access in with water,
Right,
but now, and then we had to add the drainage to it, but
yeah, so we're good there, so we have that.
yeah.
So let me ask you this, have you, in the years that you've had this, and I know we've talked probably back in 2014 or 15, whatever it was.
Whenever you got elected,
Yeah.
every subsequent 2 years.
Yeah. Government doesn't move that fast, as you know. Especially, hey, here's the good news, we have a very workable council.
I've been to
right
3
now.
meetings a year. Over the last 7.
We know the way to borrow.
So have you put to paper any thoughts or drawings about thoughts about what you would like to see as far as buildings go and what it would look like? Do you have anything to present to council at this point right now, or thoughts as far as ideas of, I mean, obviously from an ordinance standpoint, we go into what uses would be in there
Right.
and what would drive that traffic. Then we marry that up with the size of buildings, and then then you're talking about, okay, where do the streets go and what does it look like? And, you know, or are you, maybe a question would be, are you looking to build all of these buildings on your own and then lease them out? That's your idea of keeping the properties and?
That's kind of what, something along those lines.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yes,
But possibly
But-
with the exception of the town.
of the town
village
hall. If y'all needed a town hall, spot to set it on, because it needs to, I feel like it'd be cool to have a town hall that wouldn't shoot into the available piece of property that's available now. And that's what I feel like this piece, you could build it where, you know, it's got the right grade, the right look. You can look down a street and see it. You can, you know, it wouldn't be, oh, I just missed it, you know, kind of thing or whatever. I don't know.
It's kind of incorporated now. If you go all the way over to Wesley Chapel, if you look, their master plan was, even though we would never do this with the targets and everything,
Calm down,
their
everybody.
street access, it's very difficult to get out of there from
Yeah,
their
it
main
is.
access.
You have to go
But
right
there,
and
you
turn
have
around.
buildings on both sides, and at the very end was supposedly town hall was placed, that kind of setup, similar to what Matthews has and stuff like that, but,
I like it more like Weddington, where it's like on a street, you can see it, you are not gonna miss it, like when you're going around it. And that's on a roundabout too, actually.
yeah, but that gets very busy in there, even if you go over there for a meeting and stuff, it gets a little bit kind of crazy, but I think what he's saying is kind of what we talked about with the other landowners, is they've got two landowners, and in the back sits, you know, with a big green area and stuff. So my thought is, and here's one of the frustrating things, is we own land for free. So selling to the community, saying, oh, we're gonna go buy another piece of land to put our town hall on it because it's gonna be, isn't really gonna be cheaper in the end. But if we could work something with you all and saying, okay, how can you incorporate? Because I've seen town halls that are kind of part of different structures and stuff, but I think ideally for the council and for the town, ownership would be ideal of the piece of the piece of land that you have, that where we're not leasing it. And, you know, obviously we would participate in the maintenance of it because we're there using the parking lots and the, you know, minimal trash that whatever we generate and stuff. And that's where it gets tricky, and we work with how we work with you, and sort of what we call public-private partnership, if you will, and stuff.
I mean,
and having that.
If I might, I mean, I think what happened in Wesley Chapel, it's a 44-acre site, obviously. But in Wesley Chapel, the plan that the village approved, you're right, it had it at the end of a main street, to anchor a main street. And so when you would pull in, you would see shops and buildings, and then you have this nice, beautiful town hall right at the roundabout at the end. And then when the village, it took them a while to get their funding and figure out how they were gonna fund it. And then finally, they had a town hall committee and everything, and they signed off on the plan. And then when the budget came in, it got down to like $100,000 or something. It was like not a lot, but it was with the council and having to be a constituent to their fiduciary to their community. What if we just moved it right next door on the property that we own? They owned the whole.
Right.
We were involved in that project. The family that we worked with gave the land
Right.
to the village town hall with the concept plan that we all had signed off on. And for basically $100,000, the village decided to move it to up on 84 and change the entire plan,
Access
land
and
design,
how it
everybody
looks and
had come up
everything,
with.
yes.
Over basically, I think, I mean, don't hold me to this, because I don't remember the exact number, but it wasn't like, it was, well, look, if you're a taxpayer, every dollar matters, and, you know, I get it, but that's what happened.
I knew there was a master plan, and then it didn't work out that way for whatever reason. I don't know the details of it, but somehow it got, and then that's why it's so difficult, once you go there, to get out, you can only make a right turn going out, which makes it very difficult, because you gotta go into a little neighborhood to do your turnaround if you wanna come back this way. So we certainly don't want that to happen. We'd wanna kind of incorporate all of that, but that's just from an idea. I always said ideas are free. You know, what kind of concept or look would be helpful. I think a lot of people like to see, what on paper. And maybe Rohit, I know you did some schematics with the fourth leg on the last landowners we talked to, but where buildings could go and how that, have you worked
Well,
on any
I've
of
drawn this, the bottom right corner of the poster here is, it's like the rendering of the site, like the sample site plan. I took basically the preliminary concepts of the planning board meeting and gave that to the artist. And so this may be, there's a lot of room for discussion. This is just round one. But if you maybe so imagine that the building in the middle is like the town hall, and then kind of like there's a lot of public open green space and rural kind of single buildings commercially around it. Again, very preliminary, but
So there's buildings on the frontage road of Waxaw Marvin and stuff. Those are just all potential, anything, and including Newtown Road, the three you had there.
right.
One,
And
two,
again,
three,
this really is just the concept
Right.
sketch to
Just an
show,
idea.
right, to show people in general, we're thinking this district is going to be this rural, no big box stores, even on the biggest single parcel, and that's something that could come out of it. But of course, it's up for adjustments in any direction.
So obviously, I'm not a developer. Well, hold on, let me just, maybe that's not obvious. So this is like, I'm not a developer. I'm shopping. I'm not a developer, so, and I don't think anybody in here is except for George. Just looking at that, and you can look at kind of the idea that we have. And again, this was when this was done, we had not thought that town hall could possibly go here. So where would you put it?
Well, I think you always start with the access points,
Okay,
because access points are gonna be like set in stone.
okay,
So your DOT will only approve a full movement access point so far on Newtown Road down.
okay,
We looked at that, and one of the challenges was that the church owns a piece of property across the street.
yeah,
200 to 400.
And when you get to the, I think it's 400 feet or whatever from the roundabout, you're kind of on top of that corner of that church property.
okay.
So we actually approached the church and asked if they would sell it, and they said no. But I think ultimately, to get full movement on Newtown, something's gonna need to be worked out at that church too. So that access point's fixed. And then there's one across from the neighborhood on Waxaw Marvin Road.
Yeah.
So you would do it there,
You would have to be there to have full movement.
okay.
Yeah.
Where Venetian Way is?
Venetian Way is.
Yeah, right at Venetian Way?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
DOT will not let you offset driveways, because then you'll
Okay.
have like competing traffic coming in and out. So
Okay.
they'll make you, and then you probably could get one more access point
Yeah.
between the roundabout and that access point that's a right in, right out only. So you can go in right and you go out right, but you can't take a left in and a left out. So those are probably your three access points.
Wait, where was the third one?
Maybe half the distance between that intersection and the roundabout.
Oh,
Up the-
like-
The one that's at Venetian Way.
Yeah.
Right. It's not, it would be across, okay, so this is, where is it?
So
Would you
halfway-
have to?
You don't have to.
You don't have to,
No, no.
but if you want to disperse traffic in and out, make sure people have multiple
Okay, so it
options,
would
so you're
be-
not stacking people up there getting out on one entrance
And then he's
versus
talking about a right in.
like a town hall meeting,
I
you
see.
have a bunch of people show up for a
Then they
big.
can go back
Oh.
around.
Man, that'd be
So-
awesome if we could do
So
that.
it's close
You
to,
know.
Yeah,
it's close to the line, so we gotta
Well,
have.
because I just don't know how
That's what-
realistic it would be
Oh, and I'm gonna talk
that we
with
could
them
get one
about,
off of Newtown.
because they're
Because
pushing
we've
too much of
asked,
it on me. They ain't pushing
we've
on
asked the
these
church
guys
if they would
here.
be interested
I
in,
said the
this
center needs to be down
property.
here. and
I just don't know that they're
That's
gonna
where
even be
I got-
open. How much of the, do you know about how much of that gravel parking lot, or, because it's, well, I guess it's in the trees too, but how much, like, we would need in order
How much
to
of that
make
church
it
property?
accessible?
Gosh, we tried to negotiate with DOT when they came and wanted land from Tim for the roundabout. We went to them, we said, we'll give you the land, but we need full movement in this location. and they were not willing to do it.
The DOT was.
They did not, but they said in writing, they said if you're a certain amount of distance, then and I don't know the exact wording, it was sort of what DOT does, a little cryptic, but it was like, if you're within this amount of feet from, I think it was like 400 feet, I don't know.
Yeah, it's 400.
Okay, if you're within 400 feet of the roundabout, then we are likely to approve a full movement. And that's all we were able to get from them. So I think full movement on Newtown is important.
I do too.
And if it means we have to go to the church and figure out what they need to justify working with us to get the full movement, that's something that we would need to do.
Yeah.
But I guess, I'm sorry, Kim?
Yes.
Kim, to your original question, where would we want the town hall? I mean, you want it where you have access to, where you can get to the different access points. And whether that's, where you have it located, whether it's closer to Marvin, because you'll have a right in, right out, hopefully, where that is shown by the
Here.
pond.
By the pond.
Yeah,
right.
I think the topography lends the pond to be back in the furthest spot on the other side of the,
Venetian Way.
Do you have a topo map of that?
I shouldn't do that.
There's not much in there.
There's not a whole lot of undulation to the land. I'm trying to think about, because I only see it vacant very little bit.
We try to keep something growing.
It's something always growing in there, which I love, don't get me wrong. But it's, but I do think you're right. I think it does go back towards
Back
Mr.
towards
Zimmer's
that.
property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes in that
Mr. Zimmer's.
direction.
That's
Yeah, you're
right.
Yeah, so this is a topo map, and so we're trying to figure out what this means.
Pretty
It's
flat.
very flat, and it does lean towards the back, like downhill is down Wax on Marvin Road. So you'd be right that towards the bottom of this property would be the best place for the.
And it gets more residential as you go that direction and
Right.
further from the
Right, it
intersections.
isolates.
Yeah, and it
the
gives it
buffer.
more of a buffer, yeah.
Right.
His house is kind of on that front corner there, so it would give a little isolation to his home, having a pond in between.
Across from tennis courts.
So
Yeah.
if we go back to the map and stuff, we had some buildings on there and pictures and all that kind of stuff with that.
Could you envision, and just hear me out, let me walk through this and stuff, could you envision potentially a town hall sitting back and maybe like a waterfall feature here, town hall then with connected buildings that you still have access to come in here, but whether you're coming from here, or whatever.
Well, there is no
There's
there.
no there. So whether you're coming around here
There
from
may
this
be
way,
there.
this being the
Not bad.
location of town hall, and maybe set back a little bit with a nice water fountain feature or
Makes
something,
sense.
and then do something like that where you can now, everyone knows town hall's on that corner, it's not in there, and your access is here or in here, and then we fill in all this with a kind of a look that we talked about earlier of, some of the
Areas, is that something
See what
that,
you think.
or is that taking up the prime?
because that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to hurt your ability because corners are corners and they are
Right.
prime. And I understand that and I can appreciate that. But it may be too much of an ask because that may be something you could put there that you could command a significant amount of.
I think that it's, look, full disclosure, Tim called me 2 weeks ago and said, hey, there's an opportunity to put the town hall on this property. Do you think we should consider it? I said, sure. I think it would be a good use in the right location. And that was 2 weeks ago. So
I don't think we got one. When it last
Yeah,
week?
it wasn't long
It might have been a week ago.
I was still trying to get, it was right after Labor Day.
I'm still like,
We're,
I'm glad you stepped in and said when you were listening to what was going on, because we are trying to talk to all lands and exhaust to make sure that,
No, that's
if we
fine.
end up having to go in the corner, so be it, the cost is what it is and stuff, but if we can do something and save that piece for more where we're not building and putting a farmer's market and other opportunities there. Now, how you access it from your corner would be a challenge, but you'd have to probably get in your car or somehow make a safe passageway across that, which gets a little hairy. Crossing to get to that. But what we always talked about is initially is a more of a park type destination where either you have acoustical concerts on the weekends there and then have farmers market, stuff that we're not actually building governments.
As it evolves, though, I think your pedestrian crossing is going to be more achievable as the speed limit goes down, traffic is handled in a better manner, more controlled by us.
And that's our goal for you. We just talked about this whole roundabout to all the way to South Carolina, the village taking that over. And we control the speed and all the things that we're able to control when we own it. So we're moving forward with those things which benefit, you know, a downtown area. We don't want to make it where this becomes the cut through for the 18-wheelers and all the other cars, but we want the traffic to come to obviously go to the places that.
Right. So we want to control it so that it's safe, and we want to encourage pedestrian traffic in the downtown district. It just helps businesses. It helps everything. It helps the whole community access, togetherness, the whole thing that we're trying to create here. So that's a key part, is to control traffic.
And if we own the road,
Yeah, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Or
could even
do
get
like
to
you
a
do, like, or
point.
even in Charleston, like King Street, where they're talking about trying to just shut down King Street to vehiclers altogether. I mean, like,
Yeah,
which you get to a point in the evolution of a downtown. I'm not suggesting this is,
right, yeah,
and you know, and the density in this area is not going to be conducive to that either.
right.
yeah.
But there's an evolution of streets, and you get to a point where the merchants no longer need vehicular traffic, and it actually becomes inherent to their ability to be able to do well. And if King Street, for example, became just pedestrian, then the rubberneckers going up and down King Street who aren't really shopping anymore.
Right.
It would actually open up more space for people to shop, and that's like the. But I think to answer your question, I think we've got to look at the economic sort of viability of what the village all want is a vision, and looking through your. Is this adopted or is it proposed?
Not yet, it's still proposed.
Very close to
Very
being
close,
adopted.
yeah.
Okay.
Very close.
Looking through that,
I think he's
The-
talking about the CPNI report, which is not,
Oh.
something- yeah.
Oh, no, that's just a,
That was a
That's-
report
yeah, that's a
by
report.
volunteers that kind
Yeah.
of create
Gotcha.
Sorry, I
towns,
thought that was a land
downtown
use plan.
districts
Got it,
from
okay.
nothing.
So that's kind of a starting point for us to start moving forward from, to get some basic ideas.
They were full of ideas too, so which is just, again, we're, you know,
well, the case study is
But
I
we're getting a consultant for that.
where the
the strategic.
Yeah, the economic viability.
You're talking about the viability based on the uses and
Yeah.
all that stuff, but we haven't even approved or even discussed any of that, so I don't. just wanna-
well, here's I guess where I was going with this, is if the goal is to create a really intimate small building village, then to be able to convince small tenants to go into Marvin, they're going to have to be up on Newtown Road or have some visibility to start with. Now you can start to build back. There needs to be, like Tim said, some sort of, something to kind of pull people
Entice
in.
them to-
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
go there. And to put the town hall right at the corner, I think that it's going to be difficult unless, particularly if you've got free land. I mean,
Yeah.
then it becomes a
I
pricing
get it.
thing for, I think, for.
it's fair and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably what I expected, knowing how
Yeah.
land is precious and becomes more, especially if it's considered like commercial, zoned and that where you can, or like commercial.
Like if you put a Harris Teeter, I'm not
Right, yeah,
saying,
yeah, yeah,
if you
right.
put a Harris Teeter down by Venetian Way facing Newtown Road,
Yeah,
and everybody is pulling people to that location, then you can put the town hall wherever you want. You can
Right.
put your shops and it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Because
we
it's
were zoned
there.
for that, right.
So that's obviously not playing here, so.
Yeah, but I see that, I can see that corner easily as something like just like when we were, if you remember, when we were dealing with
Yeah.
the other things, they want that corner is gonna be a restaurant, hopefully, or something that, you know, people know there's a nice restaurant there and what that corner's gonna look like, so. But, and is that the town hall that you're looking at? VH, right there, you have a
Village
question mark?
Hall,
Yeah,
VH.
Yeah, okay, so this is, which you could create some sort of thing as you look back
Like a
and
green,
that
like a
sets back in
greenway, like
there.
kind of like a lawn area that's kind of looking at it. It
The
doesn't have
village
to be,
green.
yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be big, but just something that's kind of like, hey, here it
Create
is.
An avenue with a green in the middle. of it or
Water
something.
and a green area where you can sit, and people can go out and picnic, not a picnic table, but picnic benches and stuff, but could be other little shops that are all walkable through that and stuff. I guess it's so much easier when you can put pictures to it and stuff and get some ideas on paper, and that's, probably would be helpful if we're, you know, relying on our own artists, renditions and stuff, but we want to make sure it's a win-win for
How
everybody.
big is the town hall proposed square footage?
It's about 5,000 square feet. Is that correct, guys?
What?
5,000 square feet town hall?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah,
It's like 4 to 5.
Yeah, 4 to 5. It's 2-story,
Okay, okay.
which I don't even think, well, right now, the existing one,
Nope, it's gone. We took
it's
it down.
gone. Okay,
It's
so
ugly.
it looked like a barn. The existing one, 2-story. We weren't even using the top floor. I think it was gonna be for storage. It was gonna be basic walls, and I don't think we were doing much on the bid, on the top floor.
Oh, no, it was, no.
It was gonna be, but we could expand to it
Yes.
with an elevator, so, but the total amount was gonna be in the 5,000, no more than 5,000.
Okay, so this is years ago, like 5 years ago, 5 years ago? I say years ago, time flies, but we did do some initial planning, not with the town hall in mind. And we had some buildings placed, we had those access points in. And so we could go back and, take a look at that plan, take a
What that
look
looked
at the town, the village hall. Is it y'all call it village hall? or town?
Village hall.
Yeah, village hall. Look at the village hall and see where it might be able to be placed within the confines of the property. I mean, I think that, you know, just to kind of put everything on the table, if we're talking about building sizes and the majority of the buildings are 5,000 or under, is there an opportunity to do a 10 or 15 or 18,000 square foot, what we would call a major tenant, even though that's a third of the size of a normal Harris Teeter, but is there an opportunity to do something small like that to attract some traffic into the property on a regular
Like
basis?
what would be, like, give me some examples of something that would go in that size. I'm terrible at this kind of stuff. So like, what would be like that, like,
So we have a Reed's at Colony and Selwyn that's like 7,000 or 8,000 square feet.
Okay.
Which is a small specialty grocery store. I'm just trying to get a sense for, is the door, is the opportunity open to have a conversation about a small,
like anchor stores?
like a small grocery type of specialty store versus?
From a cost standpoint, to build one building though, and then maybe I want to ask this question while you're presenting that, to build one building versus multiple buildings at 5,000 square feet. Say if you built one building that's continuous that encompasses 20,000 square feet, but within that, you could have potential multiple stores. Because right now, what I've learned in
Talking
the
about a
past,
small
the average
building.
square footage for a retail store now is 1,500 square feet. Believe it or not.
For a mom and pop.
For a mom and pop, you know, which we talked always at flower shop, whatever it is that you're doing, but that's the average, which has really gone down with Amazon and all the other things. But for a store like, I think it would be very cool to have a Reed's potential there that on the way home, because everyone's coming through this way. Hey, stop and grab.
Or like, how big is like the butcher's market up in Ray and
Yeah.
right by the Catholic?
Yeah, I know.
How big is that one?
I don't know.
Oh
what
gosh, that's not even, I bet that's not 1,000.
2,000 or 3,000 feet.
Yeah.
maybe, so-
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'm terrible. at
Okay,
that
so
stuff.
here's like a Sprouts
Okay.
farmers market, that's like 25,000 feet.
Okay, so not that
Which is
big.
what is in
Yeah.
Valentine.
Yes.
Right.
And that's,
Okay.
that's half the size of
Okay.
a typical Publix, or like that Publix that's going in
It's
Youngstown
giant,
Village is probably 45 to 50,000.
I
What would
would-
you say the
hang on.
building, go ahead.
I would say that the door is not closed. We'll be more than happy to talk about it, look at it, see what makes the most sense. I mean, at least
Speaking for
me.
one. Yeah,
For me.
I agree.
For one,
That's
but
it, for me.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing though, and I'm getting some feedback from some of the residents, they're not looking for another grocery store, from what I'm hearing. We've got one grocery store, we've got another grocery store, we've got another grocery store, we've got another grocery store within 2 miles. So we're not, I'm not excited about another grocery store, no matter how big it is, just from what I'm hearing, because we have plenty around here. So I don't know if that's gonna fly with the community or not. I'm just,
That's fair.
this is the feedback I'm getting from.
We have an
who I'm
opportunity to
seeing.
talk about it
So-
tomorrow night
Yes.
in our meeting, the town hall meeting, and say, hey, again, don't get hung on this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Let me ask,
Fitness may be another option too, as long as it's got, here's the economics of building lots of little 3,000 to 5,000 square foot buildings. They're architecturally designed on 3 and 4 sides. So you don't have like the typical front and the back. So you're adding massive per square foot cost when you start architecturally designing on 3 to 4 sides. At Colony Place, our buildings that are up on the road, they're designed on all 4 sides. They were like, this is 20 years ago, this is 2004, so 16 years ago. Those buildings up front were $125 a square foot at the time, and the ones in the back were 90. And so if you build, the only way we could afford to build a $125 square foot building, the site work, the land, the soft cost, was to get like $25 a square foot in rent. Today, if we went in and we built a lot of little buildings and 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, and we spent $300 to $400 a square foot, total cost of building those little buildings, we'd have to get $30 to $40 a square foot in rent to even get a return that would even be remotely acceptable.
those are Waverly prices.
Yeah, and,
Right,
and,
so it's just to
Yeah.
get
and
perspective on
then you don't
it.
have an anchor drawing people in there. So then the success of those tenants is gonna be marginal. And then you may end up having a little village town that's vacant, and that's not.
Oh, yeah,
what
no,
you
we don't want
You
that.
don't want that. And
Right.
then everybody's mad at the developer because they're charging too much rent. Well, they
Yeah.
built $300, $400 square foot buildings because they had to, because that's the conversation that happens. And so,
And I guess what's the happy medium? Typically in something like this, you need something to draw, main tenant
I
to
agree.
draw, and then the out parcels. Now, let me ask this, if you're over on 521 and 16, across from the gas stations that now is all being developed, there was used to be, I thought, a Reed's or something.
yeah, it's a catering type of outfit, yeah.
Okay, how big would you say that?
Maybe 4,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
almost
Yeah,
4,000.
TCBY and nail.
And that's where we gotta get our head around, because we've always
Copy
talked
the
about,
footprint and put it
these-
down here.
All right, good.
these main tenants, what we would allow, even
And that's
if
what it
we're
looks
not a part of this, whether we're a part of this or not.
That's not huge.
What would we allow and what would the community allow? And I'm not so sure about what you're saying is that's fact or not. I mean, it may be just from a few people.
Well, that's what I'm getting from
And-
my
and that's-
sector, and
yeah.
that's not necessarily.
And you're
the whole
you're on
village.
that road and
Right.
you have a lot of, and I can see that, but I also know from a sheer logistics, you have 16,000 vehicles. They're not all going to Marvin. They're going to Waxhaw, they're going things.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the convenience of being able to pull over going, yeah, I may pay a little more for a butcher's market type meat place and have that,
Well,
you know,
specialty store. may be
or a
one
restaurant,
thing,
I'm gonna meet
but
for
another
dinner
grocery store.
and have a restaurant right there on that corner.
I don't think you want
and
to
then
call
the
it a
other
grocery
places.
store, 'cause I can tell you, I have a
Like
Reed's.
a fine foods.
I have a Heritage in South Park, I have a Whole Foods in South Park, they're all within 1.5 miles or 2 miles of my house. I have a Heritage Park Road Shopping Center, it's under renovation. And I bet the average shopper goes to the grocery store 1.6 times per week. I bet we go to Reed's my wife and I, 3 times a week.
It could be like
And
a
it's-
fresh market, not that big, but something
So
like,
Fresh Market's 18,000 feet.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit bigger than even when I was, and I don't even know what we're talking about when we say 10, 8, 15 like
Yeah.
specifically. I'm
listen,
just
I
thinking
would
something
love
that will
that,
keep
cause
people
then I'm like,
coming
oh, I
in
don't have to go
there.
all the way to Waverly.
I'm telling you,
If there were, if there were a butcher house
Yeah.
right there,
Yeah,
you'd be walking out, you'd have to stand in line outside.
yeah.
Yeah, a butcher shop maybe, something like
Well,
a specialty, like it, but, you
Butcher,
know,
vegetable, Reed's Butcher Shop is
Right.
prime beef. You go in, you get it specially cut. The seafood's good. The vegetables are local.
Prepare, do they have like?
you're
prepared
gonna
Chinese food?
pay,
Prepared
you're gonna
foods.
pay probably a little of a
You go pay
premium.
more.
If I
But
don't have to go into.
you don't have to go
Plain
deal
View
with the traffic and the time alone. It's like, oh, I
That's
mean,
just me.
But
as much as I like to
Yeah.
cook, if
And
I
we
don't
attach-
drive all the way to the other side of Waxhaw to go to what do you call it, down there on 200. To
But
get meat.
attaching an ice cream parlor,
Oh, look, okay.
Those
attaching
kinds,
something
yeah.
like that
Coffee
to a
shop.
So
Yeah.
that,
coffee shop
Yeah.
that has the feel of Marvin.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that right there is the footprint of the Reeds in
In
what?
the Sharon area.
Providence and Queens and Queens.
Yeah.
And it has TCBY and a nail shop in that footprint. And that's how big it is.
And where's the land on top of that? Can you put that on
That's the
top of
whole building.
That's the whole
Yeah.
building.
So that
I-
has the Reed's,
Yeah.
TCBY,
Yep.
Sherwin-Williams, has everything in it.
Yeah. Well, I
That
don't
was
know. I
13,000.
didn't know Sherwood.
13,000?
But it's
Yeah,
at
Okay, and the
Dale.
Reed's
So
is
it's
probably 7 of that.
Right, and so I took 13,000 and put it here, and that's what 13,000, and I'll lay here, that's what 13,000 square foot one building would look like on this property.
Oh, thank you, Rudy. Okay. You can see
Okay,
that.
that's good. That gives you a
That gives you an idea
scale.
how much
Yeah.
of it.
So would you position it that way, as a
I mean, I could
developer?
put it on the corner
Personally,
for,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad size for,
Yeah.
especially for the scale of the
I was gonna
property.
say something else.
So would you position that more along the Waxaw Marvin Road? Would you put something like that as a signature in the corner and turn it a little bit, or,
Rudy, take the point, go to the middle of the roundabout and put another building the same size right beside it, sharing the wall. They'd have frontage out, some nice landscaping, you could put it up closer to it and people would know it. Then they come in, then they can go to the town hall, get their coffee, get their donuts, get the ice cream, look at the fountain, and wind up at this place back towards what prompted them to go that way anyway.
You wanna look at that? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's got the 15,000 square foot.
Yeah.
building.
This is something we did, when was this? That
This is 2007, well, it's early 2017. So-
Mr. Joe might have written, we did
Much
this
like,
for
much
somebody.
like this,
Yep.
this was just something that we were messing around with, that we had land design do. We
Got
had a
land
village
to do.
green in the corner. that
No
came
town
back.
hall
The
on
biggest
this,
building was
because we didn't know
15,000
at the
square
time.
feet, which is basically the size of that building. But
I'm not opposed to that. Again,
That
I don't
doesn't
want,
You can pass it around
Pass
so
it
that
around.
people see. That was a concept that we were messing around with 4 years ago.
yeah. I mean, this is me speaking, but I'm not opposed to that. What I don't want is like a mattress store. Oh, I really don't want a drugstore.
But I think
that all gets taken care of in the uses we
Okay,
allow?
but
I
I'm
mean,
fine with
that's-
something like that. I think that would be, I'd be there all the time.
See, here's where you get, like, if you don't want the Walmarts. Now, Walmart's getting very creative too. Walmart's now being able to go into a lot smaller buildings to
the
make it
neighborhood,
convenient type
whatever,
stores.
yeah.
And we can't, but we can say, nope, we don't want that kind of store. We can't say, for instance, Starbucks can't go in there, but we can say coffee shop can go in there.
Right.
And what coffee shop happens
Can
to
you-
get that is gonna be up, pretty much your decision.
But you can't you do it from a branding standpoint, that if you're a franchise, no franchises allowed, no something allowed?
Rohit, that's a question
mean,
for you.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. I remember Matthews tried it one time, got sued, and they
Well,
wanted a
let me
McDonald's
Call-
without a drive-in.
Call downtown Asheville and see what they're doing. I know, you're gonna shoot me, but
Yeah,
downtown Asheville, my brother is a real estate developer in Asheville, and they will not allow nationals in downtown Asheville. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they get away with it,
Town
but
manager in Asheville.
just find out,
It's-
is it in the ordinance, is it in the,
I know they mess with the signage. That's definitely a big thing where it has to convey.
But that's our ordinances, I had to.
Right, but their signage is an issue because their McDonald's and the McDonald's that is in the Asheville area near the Biltmore.
oh, it has a terracotta roof and
It's
all
a
that.
whole
But that-
different
Yeah,
look.
it's a
It's a whole
different
different
look.
look.
Yeah, with the window too.
Yep.
It's different.
McDonald's is amenable to a lot of different things because they got deep pockets.
Yeah.
Because they know that their market is gonna follow them no matter where they are. So they'll
That's cool.
spend money to get in a place, especially if they can draw
Yeah.
So,
crowds in Asheville.
so maybe let's just ask the next question then. If you develop something like this, who actually owns that property? Who?
You mean the
So-
village?
We would,
So,
Yep.
so if I'm Reed's and I come to you and I'd like to put in a Reed's, you would go, okay. If I'm Starbucks, you go, we're full right now. I mean, if I'm sorry, but in my world, if I own a piece of property, I pretty much say what comes in and out. So if a Starbucks comes in, but if Jamie comes in and says, I want to put in a coffee shop,
Jamie's Coffee Shop.
Jamie's Coffee Shop, you would say, okay, we can do that. Because you can turn away any tenant you want to. As long as you own that piece of property and meeting the guidelines of what
what the town
What the town
would
does.
allow, and if y'all said somebody to, I paid double rent for a tattoo parlor, I'm gonna say no, so it's certain
Right.
things that, and,
As a private landowner, you have 100% say so about what goes in on your property, period. Now, what happens is,
Property owners change. They
tenants,
can.
so what happens is you will have a tenant
We'll
come in
see
and
that.
sign a long-term lease, say 15 years. And in 5 years, the business is not doing well,
But
and they're obligated to
But
still
town
pay
hall
rent.
here.
And so they will then go
So that
sublease
when you
their
look at, you
space.
see the village.
And that's when you gotta go back to the lease and see what uses that tenant is allowed to do in that space beyond what they're doing. And then they may be able to sublease to a tenant that gets outside of the owner's control if the lease wasn't negotiated correctly on the front end. That's where you can sometimes, the owner can sometimes not have total control. Like if I went to Reed's, I said, look, and we use Reed's as an example, but they would
This is
say,
an
look,
example for whoever's listening.
Yeah. And they said, look, I'm gonna sign a 15-year lease with you, but if my business doesn't work, I'm still obligated to pay you 15 years of rent. Because you've financed your project, assuming I'm gonna get my 15 years rent from you. I need the ability to be able to do other uses in this building if the grocery doesn't work out, or the specialty store doesn't work out. And that's where it becomes a negotiation. Well, the things that get totally X'd from that lease are the prohibited uses in the back of the lease. Those are the things that the town or the village would have established early on as uses that are not allowed per your zoning ordinance.
Yep.
There will also be obnoxious uses that'll get no, gentlemen's clubs,
Asian massage parlor?
Marijuana shops, the things that we would find offensive in the property. And so those will also be prohibited. But beyond that, the tenant can sublease to whoever they want as well.
And they have that control. I think what happens is they go in based on our blessing and approval, and they say, okay, we can get 15,000 square foot. And we work with them and how it looks like, and that 15,000, in my view, has a look to it, and everything that's built there has a certain look and feel to it that is inviting.
You
Kinda
mean,
like
you mean
we
at
had-
the development stage, or are
From
you
all,
talking?
yeah, all that, and then it's their job, kind of like Publix, to
Yeah, to
that
make
that
sure that
develop,
they
to
have
make
the
sure that they
sublease.
fill all those little
Yeah.
out parcels.
Yeah,
And that they're, ideally for them, I think, I know how this works in just discussing this with them, is that major tenant, whoever that biggest building, is their bread and butter. And then those other ones are based on the uses and stuff. But, it's gonna be important with that big building, what we allow for them to make it, if I'm hearing you right, to make it cost effective.
If you're, and look, this is this is your land, your family. So I'm just, but I
We got all
think,
kind of places for your land.
but I think if the politics are that it's ideal you get a site donated to the village, and that is an expectation, then I think there's going to have to be an economic viability to the balance of the property. in order for you to be willing to contribute a site. But I think that if there is an economic viability to the balance of the site that you can get comfortable with, then there's an opportunity to have a site donated to the town, the village, sorry.
I mean, listen, we do not want to have happen what you said, like you build all this stuff and then you can't fill it. And it's empty except for town hall. Like that would be the worst thing. Like we don't want that to happen anywhere here. So I would absolutely say that, you know, if you're willing to, you know, donate and work with the village, then we're more than happy to look at the options. I mean, I would say you guys need to come back and say, okay, this is what we're thinking in terms of your economic viability. Here's kind of what we're thinking, and we can say yes, yes, no, we don't like that, or whatever.
And one of the things that has to be factored into this is based on what we have proposed, even on this corner, say if we build that, I think we've always said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, I think 29 to 30 parking spots need to be available? Or is it 22?
26
Okay.
or 30. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so that being said, that can somehow be incorporated where we can, you know, obviously had planned to pay for that is when we build this, that could be a benefit to your potential and how you work that out, how it looks like. And when we were talking to these landowners, we were putting parking behind the town hall that was going to be the parking for not only us, I think I counted 60 or 70 spaces back there, but it was also for what potentials they would do, whether it was a restaurant, bed and breakfast, and the other little shops that they were having there. We were actually providing the, with the building, the 5,000 square foot, whatever that means, lot size for parking. Has to be, but I think you got to work it out where that parking is kind of shared.
Yeah.
With the rest of the
I think that makes sense.
So yeah.
Well, your meetings are the big ones are going to be on a Monday or Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Second Tuesday.
6 o'clock or something, and then if someone's got some crazy rezoning going on, there's going to be 100 people here, and you're going to need parking. You know, you're going to need some sort of parking situation.
Right. And that can conflict on a Tuesday night, which is not necessarily a big, you know, going out night, but weekends we're closed down. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, we're not really working on weekends. And we did talk about is everyone got hung up on this big, and this is what I'm against, is this big old room with a half moon shape for the council to sit on, and the 50 seats out there that we don't get 3 people to come to our regular meetings as it is. And if we did have a big meeting, look what we're doing with this meeting for town hall. We're going down to, you know, Forest Hills Church to have an event to accommodate that. So if we know something big's coming on, you know, I'm not a big fan of that big room that everybody sits up and the town residents sit below and because it's a waste of space. It's not usable. If you go over to Wesley Chapel, I don't know if that gets filled up. They may get 10, 15 people total come to their town meetings, but it can hold 60 or 70 in that. It's wasted space as far as I'm concerned.
It's also not very inviting.
No, it's not. You know, but it's only used for certain points, and we always have the flexibility to take our meeting, whether it's using this town hall, I mean this church and stuff like that. There are other options. The high school, those things can happen. Forest Hills is a perfect example.
You know,
When the big meetings happen.
the thing is, this room gets used at this size daily.
Yeah.
If we had something twice this size, it would be adequate for everything that we do, I think. Because like you said, we only have 10, 15 people plus the people that are at the meeting.
We don't even have 10, 15 people.
Well, we
of
probably
staff.
would have 10 or 15 people if we had a designated space. But to your point, we don't need a giant hall where it's wasted, bunch of wasted
But our
space.
plans show that, just so you know.
Right.
And
So we
it's,
can
you know, maybe if we're gonna
adjust
revisit
it.
the out parcel, the look of it and the design of it, that may be a
It
good
makes it
time
a little
to.
smaller.
Can I ask you a question? Like, is the vision for Newtown, the old part of Marvin, to have a pedestrian intimate feel through
Yes.
here?
Yes.
Is that the vision?
Absolutely.
So are you, Rohit, will you do me a favor, will you go back to Colony Place, the one that we did at Colony and Ray
Yeah.
Road, and go to Colony Road?
And Bob, can you hear us pretty clear, by the way? He's muted.
I can hear absolutely everybody very clear,
Okay, good.
almost every word.
Yeah, it's better on this type system rather than the phones. I just want to make sure.
So go to,
I can hear everybody clearly.
Thank you.
go to Connie Road and the entrance across, not there, but the one in the middle, no, go south. Right there, that, and go to the street level on Connie facing the other way, there. So, that's a very dense project, but it's $700,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 townhomes. And if you spin around, all those folks go over and walk into our project across the street that we have there. And it has although it's a small enclave within the city of Charlotte, it feels like a little, it's an enclave. And those townhomes, the people that live there, I have learned to find out, are in their 60s, they're in their 70s. A lot of them have children that have moved to Charlotte, they have the grandkids near them, they're living in the suburbs around them. And if we're limited in that, if we're talking about demand for this property here, is a slightly higher density, high-end townhome project on the table for downtown Marvin, or is that completely?
Interesting you say that, because in that report there, they do talk about kind of incorporating something where, as you get older, something less expensive, not much to maintain as far as home, but homes are that. Now, we've provided, I think, 3, well, to date, up to 3 right now, because one will be behind sort of Publix that we did on Newtown and 16. And then we have 2 other what's the 2 other?
Amber Meadows and
Amber Meadows and
Courtyards.
Courtyards.
Ms. Hayward's
But
property.
they talk about, they touch on that there should be some, because that's believe it or not, that's a big feeder to those.
Right, go to
wherever they're
Mint
going.
Hill. We own a Harris Teeter in Mint Hill, and the developer that did the master planning did there. So there's our Harris Teeter, and these townhomes are probably not quite the quality that would be done in Marvin, but you can get the idea.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, and those are sort of more single family, but it's a little more higher density.
If I can say here, the planning board is looking towards having a 1 lot per acre maximum residential capacity in addition to whatever commercial allowances. So you have 13 acres, for example. In addition to whatever commercial you'd be having in front, you could have 13 units of housing in the back. And what that looks like, we don't know yet, but that they feel fits still in the character of Marvin to allow no more than 1 unit per acre. But to put that in addition to your commercial, they might have to be closer together houses.
Okay, because when you look at the road network coming in on Tim's property, there's the dimension from the access drive off Newtown gets tight. And
Yeah.
we had thought about adding in like a row of high-end townhomes to kind of on the perimeter to kind of buffer the transition between the commercial to the single family, but also provide some pedestrian activity around the site.
There's not really an appetite for townhomes as I see it.
Okay.
Like these attached homes, it may be a non-starter, but these, not these exactly, but detached patio homes in the back is kind of something that could be considered as a buffer between the existing residential here across the street from us and your commercial activity.
Okay.
And I know there was talk before, and this was in the past, about someone putting living quarters above on the 2nd floor of
And-
existing buildings, and which
Somebody
those
said they didn't
tend to
like
be a lot smaller. Now, the reason they don't affect the schools is because typically you're not a family coming in and looking at that type of property. You're wanting to basically,
But the same
reduce.
product at Colony Place, the first one we looked at,
right,
that everyone in there is in their 60s and 70s.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's.
and their traffic patterns, everything's different.
Was it deeded that way, 55 and older, or 60 and older, or whatever?
The McKee property was, the one we did at McKee Farms, that those were deeded as 55.
They were.
Or zoned that way or something, but I don't think, we didn't do the Burning Tree project at Colony and Ray. That was done by the Cunane Group. They just happened to be building when we were building at the time. And they had
Those
a,
ones, yeah.
oh, that's McKee, and those are restricted. And those are quadrant.
Yeah, there are four.
There's four of
homes
those.
With a 2-car garage. It got a cool layout to it.
Per acre?
They call it pinwheels.
No, those would be hard to do here because they're,
You need
Two
front and
streets
back.
facing.
yeah, and too much
Yeah,
space.
yeah,
You
right.
couldn't really do them.
Yeah,
You really have to you really need like a really nice all brick, really well done, kind of high end, the way the site lays out. And that was kind of where I was
There's
just asking
some,
the question
there's some
about.
that are, you don't know that they're there, I didn't, but I had policy over, and they're near the Arboretum, on the other side of the road, the Arboretum. Some really, you almost think you're down in Charleston or somewhere, I don't know the name of the building, you know what that is? It's over there on the old Springs, you remember Ms. Springs that owned that piece of property there? As you're going north on Providence Road. Anyway, that's what they did there, and anyway, they're nice, you know. Anyway,
Well,
area.
It was a question, and it sounds like there's conversation about maybe incorporating 1 per acre within the, so maybe 13, maybe, or something like that, but.
So because this is so new, a week old, even though we've talked about it for a while, I'm thinking that, okay, if we can get our head wrapped around, if you're thinking, okay, there's a trade-off. If you were to donate room enough for a 5,000 square foot building and 22 parking spaces, think that in mind thinking, what would you need to go back and come back to us with? And maybe that takes a little bit of time in thinking that out and finding out, okay, we would, to make that happen, we would need this, and this. 1 building or 2 buildings in the however many square foot, and shake your head if you're agreeing or not, because I'm not offended by any of it. It's just an idea. But you're coming back to us with this. Ideally, we'd have 1 main tenant of 15,000 square feet, and maybe some drawings that'll help us, and maybe how
I mean, I
roads
like
would
that.
go.
Like that one, really?
I did like that a lot. And I
like
think
that a lot.
that could work. And then we get to the point of what are the uses gonna be? So then that helps them more
I
with
don't think you want this.
getting their head wrapped around.
Don't make a
What?
public record of it.
This is
but-
like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can clean this up and
Right.
No, but I
Yeah.
like the overall design with and Kim and I were talking about it briefly, is that Village Green there, if you put Village Hall at the end of it, either across the street or at the end of it, where it gives you the same layout, but just stick the Village Hall in that. It gives you that whole front lawn, nice grand appeal, and then it gives you all of the things that you were still trying to incorporate in the plaza, which I
So-
think
Yeah.
Bringing us up the
And-
stores and the front ends of the stores and what they do to attract customers becomes part of your driveway to get to the town hall that you
Yeah.
don't have to keep up.
Yeah.
You don't have to paint it, it becomes the entrance, I guess, that
right.
And
Right.
if we can get our head wrapped around and do the numbers, Rohit, whether it's you or you, George, that can go in and says, can we get that right in, the full capacity of access off of Newtown Road? And then certainly, I think there's certainly room for a right in, right out on Waxhaw Marvin Roof. And then across from Venetian Way, a full access right there. With those 3 things, because I think that makes it easy for everybody, where you don't have to go into Newtown Road to get into the property, you can make a left turn into
That's the property.
the property. If you're coming south from Waxhaw, you can access the property.
That's
Same for
important.
coffee
Yeah.
shop,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's important to be able to.
200 to
come
But you
over.
would do that in
Like,
Venetian anyways, you'd be able to have that.
So,
You wouldn't have the access
yeah,
at
we
right
could
in,
just
right out.
make it full.
But a lot of people going to Waxhaw,
Yeah.
if it was a Reed's,
So they gotta say
they're going home,
the
they go to
traffic
Waxhaw, they're going out that
flow
way because it's gonna
is
be less
through
congestion.
And to Waxhaw.
Yeah.
2/3 of the traffic that goes
Pretty good,
by here goes to Waxhaw.
Well, that's why I don't go to Harris here in South Park, because South Park takes me from a mile and a half, and it takes me 15 minutes to get there and 10 minutes to get back. I go to Reed's.
Yep.
I'm like, if your traffic's gonna continue to grow, which it is, you can't stop it.
We're gonna try.
We're not gonna stop it, but we're gonna slow it down.
Providence Road, which is your closest grocery store, you're gonna have to go down Newtown Road, you're gonna have to cross Providence Road, and long-term,
Well,
And then the other thing you gotta
there's
think
two
of-
stores right here.
and I don't mean a big one, I mean a small
Right.
section where you can just go
Right.
pick up
And
dinner.
And the other thing you gotta think of is the ability to get, when you get into a building that size, and you have, say, a Reed's or whatever, if it's a small grocery type or specialty store, does that require the 18-wheelers to get in to supply them? And hopefully it doesn't, it's the smaller trucks that can access, because the 18-wheeler, that's a game changer when you look at what they have to
Right,
do.
you don't want that big heavy.
You don't want that there,
traffic.
plus we wanna discourage that kind of traffic anyways.
Well,
But
you don't want
I don't know,
those
what- and I don't know the
That's a
answer to
on
that.
your
70-foot
streets.
That's
Yeah.
a 70-foot truck, and
Right,
there's no way,
you don't want that on your parking lot,
yeah.
turning
The
and.
turn radiuses have to be
Yeah.
engineered.
And that's what I'm saying, is just, it can't be too big where you're gonna have to require whoever goes in there for your main tenant, if we can get to that point, is having to have an 18-wheeler go in there, and that may be some of the thought put into that as we design or can get to a design stage.
So can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely. It's your
Okay,
turn.
my turn. Okay, so I've got like just some questions. Infrastructure, like we would obviously bring the water and sewer across the street to Village Hall. At that point, you guys would be able to, I'm assuming, tap into that
Yep.
and spread it amongst, the rest of, the property. So, that I'm assuming we, the village, would do that to get it to Village
Right.
Hall. And then you guys could then have the infrastructure, the water and sewer.
Reduces the cost for them.
Correct.
Absolutely.
The common space, would you guys, or would you own and take care of that? Would you want us to be a part of that? Like, kind of what's your thought there?
Well, I can only speak to what we've done in the past with other uses in a larger project where, maybe someone owns a piece of property within a big project and there's a common area and it's the driveways, it's the stormwater detention pond, it's the sweeping of the driveways. So there's maintenance, there's capital repairs, all of that, and that gets outlined in an easement agreement between us and the village.
Okay.
So we would just basically, the easiest way to do it typically is the tenant or the village, you own your property, you maintain your property.
Right.
And then either you maintain something and we contribute back to the village, or we maintain it and the village contributes something back to
Okay.
us. Like in every, Wesley Chapel, CVS, Chick-fil-A, we maintain all the driveways. When it snows, we're responsible for getting them cleaned out. And then they make a fixed contribution every month to us that's fixed. It goes up like 3% a year for cost of inflation. So they're making contribution to those common areas
Okay.
in that particular instance.
Okay.
So that's, and then if there's like a capital issue, like the storm pond blows out, or there's a road that needs to be replaced, you take all the land, if it's 13 acres and y'all have an acre or whatever, then you would be 1/13 of a capital repair
Okay.
that would take place when that happened.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we would think about it
Okay.
in general.
And then in that drawing that you have there, there's a road that like, there's a, yeah, there we go, there's a road. Would you guys build that road? Would you want us to be part of that road? How do you envision that working? I'm just asking all the big questions that nobody else wants to ask, so.
Oh, we
These
would've
are all
got
big
to it.
ticket items.
We would've got to it. I mean,
Just kidding.
That was my mistake last time.
Mhm. I mean, usually the first in pays, and then there's some sort of back contribution. But you're dealing with a village that you're having to go tell a private person in 5 years. I don't think that works for you guys. That's something we would need to think about. Normally, like, we would build it, but we would have a tenant that's got the capability to pay us back, and we would say, all right, well, you're committed to paying us back in 3 years, within the next 2 years when you get your permits and put the shovel in the ground, or earlier, you're going to pay us your share. But in this case, it's a little trickier.
So given now, the environment now, just out of curiosity, logistically speaking, if we were to authorize and say, okay, we're good with a 15,000 square foot building as a main tenant, and then we want the 5,000 for ours plus our parking and stuff, do you think you would be able to fill that fairly quickly if the use was for like a Reed's or something like that?
No.
That's my question, because that's
He's just positioning the rest of the property for something that has economic viability
Right.
whenever it happens. We have no tenants in mind, we have no plans.
Well, and that was gonna be my next question. If, like, obviously this is not working, well for us. We're getting big, we've got, we need more space. So we're ready to move on Village Hall as soon as possible.
Right.
So if we can come to some sort of agreement, would it be, like, would it work if we went ahead and built Town Hall and it was just sitting there, we're using it, and then you guys just are building around it at whatever point you're ready to start building?
Yes. So what could happen is we would agree on a plan. It would be submitted to staff planning, the whole process. It would get approved. The contribution from the Fincher family for the town hall would happen. There would be a joint agreement between the Fincher family and the village to say, among other things, you're going to put in the roads you need, the parking you need so you can control your destiny with your town hall.
Okay.
And you do everything you need to do. And then when they're ready to come in, or ready to come in and start building, there would be an agreement, through that easement agreement that I described earlier, that basically says, look, my construction entrances have to be in these areas. I cannot block your driveways while we're constructing. If we have to run a sewer line across the driveway, your driveway can't be closed less than 24 hours. So there's all those things get baked into this agreement, so you guys know that once you have built and you're open and operating, that you can continue to operate through our construction. Yeah. I mean, we'll have construction fencing required. We'll have those things get done.
It'll look ugly in the beginning as the thing, because you'll have mostly raw land, and then you'll have essentially town hall, because we're ready to move, is what she's saying.
Yeah.
We've got timelines of, if none of this works with any landowners, it probably means breaking ground on that corner by, what was the date that we gave out?
May, June.
May?
March?
May, June.
Tim, do you have any vision of when you would like to try to have some kind of something built over there?
I've got a shovel in my trunk. We can
You're
start
ready
now.
right now.
I mean,
I want
have you
my
thought
helmet,
about a
my
vision
name on it.
when you would like to start on a project in this area?
Oh, you mean the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
I thought you were talking to Joe.
if we do something, I'd want to get on it. I don't want to be something that drags on for a real long period of time, because I'm not getting any younger, and I feel like I'm the guy that needs to make it happen. If I'm gone, dead and gone, my sisters, then you got a whole some other kids are gonna be, and they're scattered all over the country. I got one nephew, he's an architect in Denmark. So I mean, it's gonna be, it gets harder to deal with somebody, so I'm back to saying, we got a flat piece of ground, it's on the corner, and it could, I think it could work for you. And we've held on to it this long,
Right.
for whatever reason.
So, I guess where I'm kind of thinking is, if we're gonna start construction on Village Hall, if we kind of started on something along the same timelines as maybe initially start on your project, starting on like one end of the plaza or something. So that those construction projects kind of are simultaneous, so that the place is tore up all at the same time, and then working towards the other end of it, maybe as you decided to do. That's all, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Nothing, no requirements. I'm just thinking about, keeping the construction under control. For one, it saves costs on your end, because you're not having to go out of your way to make all these provisions for construction. Stuff gets done at the same time and then moves along in a direction where then it's not a prohibitive thing for you to do your construction.
I mean, in an ideal world, that would be great. Like,
But that's
I don't think,
that's why I'm asking the questions about the ideal world.
so I've been on both sides of this where, and I'll tell you that you guys, I think, when you go get this approved with the community, you want assurance. Like, you want to make sure you can deliver what you want to deliver.
Right.
In 2006, we were building the Lowe's Home Improvement in Waxhaw, and the Walgreens, and the McDonald's. And the Sandler Brothers from Norfolk, Virginia, who built the Harris Teeter across the street, were supposed to pay for 2/3 of the new realigned Cuthbertson Road and the traffic signal. And they went bankrupt. And it was a requirement in my Lowe's lease, McDonald's lease, and Walgreens lease that we have that intersection relocated in the traffic signal in. And actually, we're partners in that project.
I was married to him then too.
And I'm sitting there with a $2.5 million construction project, a relocation of Cuthbertson Road, and I'm only supposed to be putting in $800,000. And I've got a bankrupt guy across the street that I was relying on to contribute to this project. You guys don't know that Tim and I are going to be able to deliver, like we say we can, and we've never not delivered, but you can't, there's no guarantees. I think when you go to your village, you want to be able to say, we got this, we have the budget approved, we have the land, we know exactly what we can do, and anything you get from us is gravy. And
Right, I'm
in
just
terms of
thinking,
timing and everything, and all that.
ideally, making things work in conjunction, but like Kim said, like, we don't want to have this drag out forever, but I'm just thinking ideally for the construction process. I'm just trying to get a feel. I don't know, I'm not holding you to anything, I'm just asking to get kind of a feel of how this project may start materializing if we go this route.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're ready to move.
Yeah, so
A
that's
week
what
ago,
I was,
we didn't
that's what I
know what
wanted to
y'all
hear.
want to talk
That
about.
you're ready to
So,
move on something.
we dusted off a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
the, since then, so we got a little bit of homework.
Oh, sure, but I'm saying, like, it doesn't sound like you wanna wait 5 years. before
I
you're ready to
I don't think so. I think the time is good, and I think by the time it's completed, it will be, y'all will be glad you did it when you did.
Right.
I just wish construction costs were down right now.
Yeah, so do I.
They're not. They're not.
No, they're crazy right now.
Well, we can't, we
Probably
also,
worse.
it's not feasible to just sit around and
Lumber's
wait.
up.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question real quick about the road. Would you guys ever entertain this being a public road? Would you ever turn it over to us for maintenance? The main
I mean, if you
road?
could do townhomes, we have all those things listed, all those properties, they would definitely be public. I mean,
Okay.
and I don't think we want to deal with the HOA, it's like,
What about
Sorry.
even if y'all don't end up doing residential, would you still be open to turning it over to the village to maintain?
I'm not
I
sure
don't
we
know.
would want
I don't
it.
know.
Would we want
I don't
that?
know.
Well, I don't know if
Maybe-
we'd want a private road to access our village hall, is the only thing that I would be concerned
I
with.
see what you're saying.
You could have, yeah.
or at least a section that goes.
But you
to
still want us
us.
to build it though.
Well,
There's a
the way
standard.
I see it is we're starting with town hall already. Obviously, access roads in there. So that access road, which would be basically 2 at this point. The third one would be down the road, I would think, because we wouldn't need the third one. One being in Venetian, one if we can do it over at, across from Venetian, and the other one off of Newtown Road. So us being responsible for all of that, ideally, if land is being bequeathed to us, that we have X amount, and then we have to have the cut-in roads, we're gonna have to pay for that roads, and they may or may not be ready because of construction costs, because of the economy. We don't know what we don't know, but we know what could potentially go there. I think the biggest question is, and I think you've answered it, is ideally, we don't want this land being just bare land forever with the town hall sitting in the back, but that's how things typically go anyways. You start with something and then you build upon that, and then, but that, just so the council knows, that road on Venetian, across from Venetian and off of Thing, is gonna have to be built by us. That's one of the costs that I see going in, but if there's a way to get something back down the road as buildings go in, that may be helpful to, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I think on the-
Or we don't get it now, but maybe down the road, and I don't know how you structure that.
But I think on the private versus public road, I think sometimes folks get in their mind, well, if it's private, then it could get changed and things could happen, and I don't know if we want to deal with that. The easement agreement that gets in place provides, like, for example, the Fentrick family continues to own the main road. The village will have an easement right to that road that will exist forever. It doesn't go away.
Right.
And it has conditions in it that require, say, you cannot relocate this road except, for certain conditions, and those conditions can be without consent from the village. Or, but if you go public, the standard for a public road is going to be more. It's going to be more expensive, I think. And you got to, I know in Vauxhall, they want us to do a public road, and the width of it, the amount of asphalt, stone.
We follow their same guidelines, I think, now. We use their,
So it's a pretty expensive road, and you certainly wouldn't want to make it public until we finish developing the project, I don't think.
Well, I don't think there's the need for that, that surface that we're talking about, this standard, because it would be car traffic only. It's not gonna be, and that public road standard is for trucks and everything, so.
Well, then if once it's done, if you guys didn't want it, you could always turn it over to us and we'd take it at that point, and it would just be.
in all fairness, to control the cost though too, of not doing that, putting it on us to do that whole road, is we pick one or the other across from Venetian and have it access and to that, and only do that side. You still have full access. Maybe a little more challenging. You may have to go down the roundabout to get to Newtown Road to access it on Newtown Road in the beginning, but you would have full access there. That's the only thing. And then we're building that where it's not costing the town, and then it gets turned over to a private driveway with a full easement.
To your point, you could make it where, depending on where the building is, if you could make your parcel part of the road coming in.
Mhm.
So you'd actually own one of the driveways coming in that way, and then we would have an easement back
Right.
So like we
from
could-
your road, and you'd have an easement back from us on the ones that the family retained.
Correct.
That would be a way of, that happens a lot. I mean,
And then that's
Where-
us up here.
That sounds like a better option. That way it gives us access until the rest of it's all complete.
And we're not having to spend all the money for the
To do
other.
the whole thing.
Right.
The whole thing, and we're only doing part, but we still have, again, it's all premises on, do you have full access off of Newtown Road? I think we all agree.
Well,
Right.
I asked Christina and Rohit, if we own it, do we have to follow DOT stuff? And their consensus is no.
No.
We still
So-
follow
We
that.
write our own.
no, you do
No,
not.
yeah.
So if it's our road, then we can put it at 328 feet from the roundabout, because that's about where it would need to go, right?
Oh, I see. He's saying that
I
they're
thought you
saying
meant
where we
return
on the
the
roundabout.
No, no,
I
no.
did
On a
too.
state road?
Like
Newtown's a state road.
We're
We're
planning
gonna
on
take it over.
Okay.
So
So
it
then
becomes
it'll
our
become a
private
village
road.
road.
We
That's a good
still,
question.
we still operate under their manual though, so we'd have to look at some guidelines, but there's
That's what
more
I'm saying.
leeway on us, leeway on
Yeah, the key is they do that for a reason, usually safety, line of
Right.
sight, all those things come into play. And if you don't
But-
have that, we
But-
want to.
but you could do
Here's the
you
other
could
thing,
do it right
we're changing
in,
the parameters of the.
right there, I mean, a
changing
right
speed,
out
changing
there and just go around the
patterns.
roundabout
You
and
want
go the other
full
Those
way.
things make an impact
In
on
the
why
beginning,
they
you want full access.
Okay.
require
And you
certain
only,
buffers.
and if that means we start at Venetian and go that way.
350
you
feet
have
may work
easier
for a 25 mile
but-
speed on some
But I mean, look,
35,
it's
which will be-
335
I know.
feet versus 300.
Yeah.
But we need what, 4?
We need 400 to have full access, but we still can have 200 to 400. See,
We need to go talk to the church.
200, well, but Rohit's saying 200 to
200 to 400, you
is
can
up
do
to
it
DOT
with
review.
discretion, right?
And if we own it, then we're gonna have a lot more discretion.
Right. They gave us a driveway permit, 236 feet or to whatever this is,
And that's
Full
full
access.
access.
with the caveat that we will study the impacts on the roundabout and revoke your full access if we think it's too,
Where's
This
that
is
road,
impacting.
then that's,
That's how Mark-
But you gotta understand,
Small.
that was given to us with only one building in mind.
Right,
Which
right.
was Town
No, I
Hall,
know.
which gets very little.
But then we've got an extra 120 feet going the other way, so it seems like,
I
Yeah,
agree, and I think.
I mean, I don't know.
And
Just
that's,
Village Hall.
that's
Right.
if the state retains ownership of it, but if we own it, there shouldn't be an issue with it, with their maximum buffer zone of 400, and we shrink it down to 330 feet.
Well, your speed limit too is gonna have an
Yes.
impact.
Right, that's
25.
25, so it shouldn't be an issue, realistically, to have full access, it really shouldn't. You know, if we got 25-mile-an-hour speeds and it's our road, it's our discretion, I feel like that's plenty of distance from the traffic
I agree.
circle to be safe. And you're at the top of a knoll where your sight line is better at that point.
Ray, can you zoom in and see where the taper from that roundabout ends?
right there.
oh my
That's
word.
about 100,
Mhm.
How far is that?
feet. Let's measure that. Yeah, it's 105 feet.
But you see the taper from beyond that?
Taper, so
Yeah.
here. That's
Right.
where the complete taper ends here.
How far is that?
That's 180 feet.
So then is it 400 feet from there?
No,
It
no,
will
no,
not
no.
be.
It's 400 feet from the roundabout, which is roughly here. But what George is pointing at is that it's a straight 2-lane road for another, 150 feet.
Before we get to that access point.
Yeah.
And then you have people potentially making a left turn in.
Yeah. Which
Grading
is,
issues.
yeah, it should be as safe as any other driveway on any other road. I mean, you're on just a straight 2-lane road.
I mean, it's a speed limit thing.
Well, we're planning on lowering it to 25, so.
And that should be fine.
And
what is it now?
with an-
35.
And, you know,
With
30,
most
I'd say
people
might
on
go
50.
35.
Like,
35.
If you find anyone going 35.
35 to
I
55.
really feel like that the main traffic through this is going to be right in and right out. Because 2/3 of the afternoon traffic where you're gonna get your biggest shopping volume is coming from Charlotte going to Waxhaw. They're gonna make a right in and they're gonna make a right out. And they're going on to Waxhaw. I
On their
really
way
feel
home,
like,
you mean?
yeah, on their way home. That's gonna be
Yeah.
your highest volume of traffic.
And the coffee shop, just, again, pure logistics, people are going the other way, so they're
Right.
actually having to cross over
They'll
to
have
get into a coffee shop, which
Right.
could work, and, if it's enough need, a breakfast place, whatever,
Yeah.
that draws them in there, that may be, something that works and stuff, but.
But, people are going to go where it's the easiest and it may not be the safest. So,
And with the other landowners there, all fairness, they talked about the Crane building there, turning that into a coffee shop. If you're coming from Waxhaw and stuff, that's the easier access, quite frankly, for a coffee shop. Or right in, right out, but that's all they're probably gonna get right there, unless they put in that 4th leg, which is what we were.
maybe restricting it to right out only on Newtown, but you could turn left from Newtown to access, where they control it. So you can't make a left out on a Newtown, which would be a little safer. Because all you'd have to do is go around the traffic circle if you want to go left and make that. just.
You're saying
limit it-
no left turn out
Out
of the
of-
Newtown side?
Yeah, out of the Newtown side. Then you can go left in, but not left out.
The
Crossing.
craziness, in all fairness, and all I can
Could be
tell you
better.
is, and this is from many of times, going to get a Christmas tree, putting my Christmas tree in that little parking lot, and coming out of that parking lot is scary as can be. As you start to pull out, all of a sudden the car is there and stuff. You don't have great line of sight right there, and this is just a little bit.
Well, some of
further than that.
some of the vegetation will be,
I
peel
agree,
back
but I'm
and all
just
that,
saying,
give
as,
you a better
as
sight
they
line.
were flying as they are now, coming out of there is
I agree.
very, it
agreed.
gets a little bit hairy, so we just gotta be mindful of what.
We'll have to do a little bit of
Where that
studying on
access
it
is.
and look at what is the best.
So I think the walk away or takeaway is, I mean, you guys gotta do a little numbers crunching, I think, in a sense that, is there a potential for that donation from a town hall, and I think we're getting our head around this, town hall, putting in our parking, what we would need, and then at least one access road to get to it that's full access, that we're maintaining, and then we come in and then what you guys would need in exchange for that. Does that make sense? And then at that point, and hopefully we can call another special meeting, we do need 48 hours for that. Once you get to that, then come back to us and we can look at that.
Well, what I was gonna, so some of the next steps that Christina came up with is we need to.
That's why we have her.
I know,
Yeah,
we need to
yeah.
authorize the attorney at our work session to do a memorandum of understanding so that we know like kind of where, like what our understanding is to bring back to you guys so that we can work on that. We need to establish joint agreements.
We would establish what those joint agreements would be, as y'all mentioned, the easement, those sort of things in that memorandum.
Yeah, so why don't you just say it instead of me?
So that would be part of the memorandum, and then if y'all find that it's economically feasible, then we could start simultaneously working on our architectural design of the village hall and what that looks like, and I don't know if y'all want to be a part of that vision, and if so, to what extent. That would be what's in the memorandum of understanding. Then at the same time, we can start working on, all our DOT permits and that sort of thing as well, if needed.
Tim, George, we had some pictures and ideas when we were talking to the other landowners, and they showed some areas about just vibes and what it looks like and what it could feel like and stuff. A lot of that is part of the architecture and what that looks like and stuff, and we're going to the point where we're changing our whole outside, what do you call it?
Facade.
Facade, I guess, elevation to a whole different look, which I'm still in favor, because I think everybody in this council, current council, is not big fans of the barn look, quite
I
frankly.
really like the new.
Right.
Is it one story,
A
two
lot.
story?
It is
What does it look
two-story.
like? Y'all got,
Two-story.
2-story.
Anybody got
Well,
a
but
picture of
but
We
now,
can get
now
you
that you're
one.
talking
We can
about
get you
that,
one.
how do you, and maybe y'all have talked about this, and I apologize for being late. But then where does the front of town hall face? Does it face to the parking lot, or does it face back toward the road?
We hadn't
Back towards the
really,
road.
but we haven't really come up with a concrete.
But you're
I
not,
would think.
but you're not entering it from the
Yeah,
front of the
that's one of
road.
the things that we
Yeah, I
like.
think you might be able to see it, Jamie, if you're driving down,
think you'd have
the way I
different
envision this, if I'm looking at these roads and you're putting town hall where that square is right there, or maybe down a little bit, the way I'm envisioning this is you have a strip of land that's maybe open space, like park area, in between two buildings, that when you drive down, you can see down that lane of grassy area, whatever it is, fountain that we put in, and the town hall sits in the back.
But
Okay.
if we do something like the
And it's a half wall
last
there
drawing,
in
do you have
that
it right
corner.
there?
Yeah, 1 second.
Hang on, so if we,
probably this located.
Building there, the building here.
An architect, what's the word that I'm looking
That
for?
was just kind of taking this
What?
shifting memory there.
You like
How it
better?
sets how it sets, what's
I
the,
don't know, I don't want to think about it, I don't have a,
Yeah.
I was just playing around with something,
right.
just kind of think about it.
I was, because when we were looking
Egress
at it
in and out,
initially, I thought
how it all works with everything else.
yeah, I mean, you've got a square there,
This side of
but
the road facing out, and then take this building
where's the
and
front?
maybe
I know,
moving it
hang on,
to,
I'm gonna tell you
over here
what,
with road
like,
frontage
is
instead
rolling
of
around in my
being
head,
here.
which is.
or maybe here.
Okay.
Okay,
You know,
So,
just moving this
basically
and
the front,
maybe putting it across
like
the street
that,
where it
that
would be, then there would be a pedestrian crosswalk here. or
You might need a
whatever,
magnifying glass.
to walk, but then
That's
still having
Okay.
that village green kind of thing, which gives you that nice aesthetic for everybody.
Mhm.
But But then you look down it and you see the village hall, kind of in the background, but it's still very visible from the road,
Yeah.
you know, as
They've
it's
got
like
it,
a
yeah.
And you still have all your
Yeah.
buildings out on the
Still have
frontage
your frontage
with,
and all that.
what's our
Gives
buffers?
us- Just gives us that lane to look back
From
and
the
see.
road,
50, I think.
50?
Yeah, it sort of puts it in a spot where you
So
can.
keeping in mind, a 50
Still
foot
see it,
buffer
yeah.
from the front of the roads is what
No,
our
we have
ordinance
So-
is.
5, but. we
So,
can
so
make
my
it-
thought
Yeah.
is that this basically, that could be the front and the back of the building. So you basically have a wraparound porch all the way around, so it looks basically the same from the front as it does the back. And so you can have it facing the street, down the long green, so you can see it, and then when you pull up to the street side of it, it looks the same.
So it still could.
So you're having,
On that
you're
side.
having the vision or the view
Right.
from Newtown Road then?
Because it
Not
would have
much.
the same view.
It's gonna look
from
the
both
same,
sides
the
that
front and the
it's
back,
at
because
there.
you're gonna have wraparound porches
It
all the
would
way
look the
around
same.
it.
Well, you only
From
need it
there,
on
and then
2/3,
the door and
3/4 of
access.
the building,
Yeah.
because on the back is
If
that,
you're coming in from Newtown and you have this.
It's where the
on
outhouse
side,
is.
So that could work.
yeah, I mean, because I envision this,
As well.
Yeah.
you actually,
Front or back to it other than.
I envision this going back into the, unless we do something back here, but if you had this and the road was here, you're saying, Kim, from this view,
Yeah, I
this view, and this view,
I
that
just-
gets expensive when you're building.
Well, I know, but I don't like the way that that building is set.
Okay,
You wanna
what,
turn it-
what do you want?
I want it like turned catty corner so it's like
So it
straight
faces
into
traffic
the
circle.
roundabout.
Faces
Yeah.
the traffic,
Yeah,
so it's angled.
yeah.
Well, that'd be great if you had the building up in there, but back in here, when you're driving down here, I actually see the building being down here more. And once you're on this road and you look to the right, you see it, you know, I don't know how far down we go. Did you not like this rendering here, Joe? No, I mean, I'm open to it, those are all.
Because this is kind of what we're visualizing and seeing is like that, because it gives an open lane so you can see it from everywhere.
But this corner typically tends to have a building on it, correct? Wouldn't that, no?
Not necessarily, and not according to this drawing. It shows a village green going to the corner, so there's just this
Sorry, I
big
marked on
lane
that.
with a few trees on either side of it, so you look down a grassy lane.
What is
and
that
then-
called?
I mean,
There's a term for,
Colonnade.
no,
Yeah.
how an architect sets it up, or, you know,
Yeah, like that.
Elevation?
maybe something like that. It's
Just
closer to what I'm
sighting.
thinking. Yeah, there's a,
An elevation is the one dimensional thing you're looking at.
right.
You might be
Well,
thinking
that's
of
really a
sighting,
rendering
that's,
here.
that's the word I use,
What's that?
sighting.
Siding, okay.
Yeah.
Site plan?
We'll use renderings, like we'll call them renderings.
He's talking about like, how do you orient a building, like the word for that, right?
Positioning or?
Yeah, there's a word, there's not, and when I say it, you get, oh, that's what
okay.
that's what you're talking about,
So
but.
how
that's
long will
okay.
it take you guys to go back and do your economic analysis?
I mean, we need to talk. I mean,
Yeah,
just
we need
I
to
mean,
talk,
we
we
need to
need a
talk.
couple, at least a couple of weeks
I
or
mean-
something. We got,
And I,
Like I
I mean,
said,
I apologize,
we-
like, it was a week ago, a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And y'all are like, the first time in years, there's serious conversation. Like, we've been here really just talking.
A lot more than 3 years.
You know, more than 3 years. I mean,
I've been here 3 years.
It's my fault, just blame it on me.
I mean, we're just,
You're just gonna.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be evasive.
No,
No, it's
I mean,
fine. We still have so much to do on the architectural stuff. I mean, and if you come back and say it's not economically feasible, then obviously we have to go back and step, to wherever else we're gonna go. But in terms of our architectural design, we're ready to pull the trigger on that agreement, so we don't know kind of where we're at in terms of timeline, until, y'all get back with us and we establish what that memorandum of understanding is gonna be with our attorney.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
So-
we'll start working on that stuff on our end, and as soon as we have it, we'll give it to you as you're working on, your information.
So in fairness, our minimum requirement, to be fair, Rohit or Christina confirm this, 5,000 square foot max on the building, right?
Roughly. Yeah,
Roughly.
I think it's
22 parking spaces. This is what we need space for, that needs to be sort of, but I envision, just so you know, those 22, if we're able to allow the rest of these buildings to use that too. It's not like the village is using 22 spots.
Right.
But that's what we need when we have those meetings
Correct.
that tend to get bigger than what they are, but most likely they would be shared by other buildings. And so, and obviously we wouldn't own the road going in, but we would have to cut that road in and make it accessible for the public when we open.
Right.
And then think about, I mean, HOAs have it all in there. You have to build within 3 years. There's ways to game that system too, where they just sell it to another entity and then the clock starts again and stuff. But ideally, we'd love to see that grow, but we also understand that the economy is gonna play a part in that. Is it raining or? Oh my God, it's just like raining right here, but not over here. It's literally raining.
It is.
So, oh, by the way, for the record, if I haven't said it, I think I had Jamie Lyon coming in at 3:16 in the afternoon.
I already got it.
Okay, thank you. But that's, I mean, some of the things you gotta get your head around as far as if, and trust me, when we say this, we really do appreciate you even considering offering you know, some sort of donation, but we also understand that, you know, there's trade-offs with that, and council needs to think of, Robert, you included, of what we would get our head around as far as size of building, because that's pretty much what you need to make this thing work. I mean, we want this to be a win-win. We want this to be a viable.
I want it to be a win-win-win.
Well, and yeah, for the community as well, and a destination where people can get to access, whether it's biking or with their cars or whatever and stuff. And it could come out pretty cool. Any kind of drawings or renderings would help. I mean, I'm a visual person. I like seeing.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? So the planning, we've been part of lots of different municipalities, and sometimes there is no architectural requirements where you come in and you present and they say, yay, no, do this, do this. And there are areas where there's an overlay district where everything is just detailed out, exactly what you can and cannot do. And there's everything in between. Like in Charlotte, they'll say, all right, along the South Boulevard corridor, you have to window at every 10 feet on the building. You can have large blank expansive walls. I mean,
Does that cost the
how are we
developer
thinking
a lot
about like the architectural
more in
elements
depth we are?
associated
How
with
in
this?
depth you gonna be,
Yeah.
this drives the cost of.
Yep.
We're thinking of doing something like that. I mean, the Village Center Committee is gonna be working on that. And for Marvin Gardens, we did that, and that was the only way commercial got approved in Marvin, was to have a very tight grip on the architecture. They use stone facades, and even like the spacing of the arches and stuff. So they did that for Marvin Gardens. They're probably gonna want to do something of that intensity for this project.
So it was for Marvin Gardens, it was specific. It was almost like a negotiation.
Yeah,
Like there wasn't like a set standard
Yeah.
that the village
right.
had.
That was a conditional district.
Yep.
So
It was considered conditional. Would this be considered?
we're still deciding whether it's a conditional district or a conventional district with conditional uses. But in any case, they're gonna still review this. They're gonna come up with the architectural regulations and then still want to review the site plans when they're submitted.
Right. So,
Okay.
so yeah,
So
and
not like
that's
a by right district.
that's the big thing for any developer or builder or some small. In the past, we were dealing with publics, big corporation. We're dealing with an individual that may not be able to, because every restriction we put on it just
Costs money.
bumps up the cost for them to build. If we want a look, a vibe, a certain look of what these buildings are gonna look like, that just raises their cost up. That makes it more challenging.
Well, I mean, I think we're gonna have to do
Fairness.
something where we have some
Yeah, we can
conformity,
be
so
somewhere
it's
in
not
between.
like,
Absolutely.
But we don't want to
Mishmash
get
put
too
together,
restricted
like-
where it runs your costs out of reach for, and here we are, we want small square footage, mom and pop kind of things, that's where we're going. So if we run the cost too much, those people can't afford to
Right.
do business in those spaces.
Right.
So that leaves your plaza
But I don't
empty.
want
So we have to
willy-nilly.
kind of
Right.
finesse this to where we have a good happy medium there, where we don't want an ugly building, but we don't want too expensive.
So but I was thinking about the village hall rendering that you had earlier, which is beautiful, but you couldn't. Sorry, what was the rendering, the elevation,
A picture of
the
it.
picture.
You had
The front
earlier.
porch,
Yeah.
yeah, that. I mean, I love that. It's beautiful. but like that, there's no commercial, elements to that.
Well, no, this would be just for Village Hall.
I know, but we would want, like, I don't.
You want to play off of it.
Yeah, I don't like, I don't,
Yeah,
we
you don't
want
want it to be
something
a-
that is like, and it's beautiful.
You don't want an apple in the middle of an orange.
In all respect, have you ever been down to Seabrook?
I was thinking Bluffton.
In
I was thinking-
between Seabrook and Kiowa, there's Fresh Fields. And
Right.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like that vibe, which I think would probably work with that. And it didn't look that expensive, but those buildings are all look like they're,
Yeah, can you pull up that?
What?
Well, I think if we
Depends
could,
on what you put on
if
it.
we knew somebody that had a place down there, we could go down and take a look at
Oh,
it.
we could.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
such a
Take some
good
pictures.
idea.
I can house 15 of you.
But to the point that you were talking about before, I think it would be, in fairness, and I'm just throwing it out, my thought would be not having to recreate the wheel. Some of the developments that you worked with in the past and some of the specifications and some of the guidelines that you're using for those, you could propose those into, as a starting point, as opposed to trying to, does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, that would be ideal.
because we could work from there instead of, starting from scratch and doing it over, but something that you have developed before in the past
Just like that.
that would correlate
That's it, right at that roundabout.
something that we're doing here
you get a
and bring
street
those
view of that.
requirements to the table and go, this is what we did at this location.
Okay.
And then,
Because you
that way it's
understand
not
where we're
costing
trying to
you
go.
anything.
Yeah, oh yeah, like we used to own special shops in the park, in South Park, and we redid the whole thing where Bricktops is, we put Bricktops in there, and that's a totally different project than like McKee or
That's-
Colony, or, it's just every
So if you can
every
get a
location
street
needs to
view
have
of
its
that.
own sort of feel and flair, and this area, it's got.
So that's the Harris
expectations of
Teeter
what you
there.
want.
Starbucks is within
I mean,
the Harris Teeter.
Yeah, like that kind of.
So
stuff.
that, in my view, that kind of architecture could work. And that's just one opinion, but, that's the Harris Teeter right there. That's the market, Freshfields Market that was just taken
That's like the
over
one in
by.
Charleston. Is that what that is?
Right outside of
It's
Kiowa and Seabrook.
in Kiowa and
Oh,
Seabrook,
It was an
right?
old Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah, it was the
And
Piggly
Harris Teeter
Wiggly,
picked
yeah.
up all the
Piggly.
Piggly Wigglies.
And they.
But they wouldn't let it
bought
call it Piggly Wiggly because it's Kiowa, Seabrook.
Yeah.
Right,
They call it
exactly.
Fresh.
That was not allowed in there.
Yeah.
In fact, you'd see the Piggly Wiggly trucks in the back that were,
Yeah.
and it was Fresh Fields. It was known as Fresh Fields.
Okay, well, I was seeing those front porches, and you can't do retail in the front porch, like,
But that's fine, the
Yeah.
stores don't have to have the front porches, but like, I agree with Joe, I think something like this would work well with that,
okay,
yeah.
that's good to know.
And that's, see the walkways there, and those are all small, fairly small. I know there's a Haagen-Dazs right there that's gotta be all of 1,000
Haagen-Dazs.
square feet.
Looks a little bit.
A Ben and Jerry's, I'm sorry, it's a Ben and Jerry's.
Retail up in Markdale, sometime they.
Yeah, some
Mhm.
Look, pizzeria right there.
pizza.
Yeah, see, that's all, like, clapboard and, it's less expensive siding and stuff like that, but still looks nice. It's not like over the top expensive stuff.
I mean, it's, again,
Already
with
plank,
what
yeah.
we're going, with
Painted
what
already
we're
plank,
going with. and-
It's very
and-
durable,
and-
but not
Yeah,
crazy expensive and that kind of thing, which still gives it that country look, like
Yeah,
the old wood clapboard, but it's today's material.
Ship
and they have that, the big space in that center is an open space just beyond of, they do, concerts in there, they have bands perform in there. And that's what I would envision, having something where you could even do that and bring a band in, an acoustical band that can perform on certain nice weekends or whatever and stuff. But that's kind of what they, but a lot of open walking spaces and easy to shut down traffic in there as well, as you're inside it. They divert traffic all the time and don't allow it go through the main area where all the people are walking in the shops.
have y'all have ABC, in Marvin?
What is it?
ABC, yeah.
No, I think that's,
We allow
Not a
store-
store, I'm talking about the ABC license, the
Yes.
restaurant can sell liquor.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes,
yes,
absolutely.
That's one of the biggest reasons that, when we were talking north of Coles, why, developers want that because
Oh,
the liquor license is a game changer.
When we did Wesley Chapel, we did the Harris Teeter, we went in for our rezoning, and they said we were gonna do Food Line. This is 1999 was the rezoning. And they said, we don't have Food Line. And I said, well, I can't, you don't have liquor without drink. We don't even have beer and wine sales. We can't get a Harris Teeter. Food Line was like, yeah, we'll go without beer and wine. And Harris Teeter was like, we can't go without beer and wine. And that's it. So we called Harris Teeter and said, if you can sell beer and wine, will you go to Wesley Chapel? And they said, yes. So then we went back and we spent 5 months getting a referendum approved in the November election to get Wesley Chapel to sell beer and wine so we could get Harris Teeter.
Oh, yeah, 'cause
So that's how the Harris Teeter ended up in Wesley Chapel instead of Food Line.
Yeah, because I signed the liquor thing or the beer and wine thing for the Publix. So-
Right.
Yeah, and then we went back 2 or 3 years
But
later.
there could be a
Tavern.
restaurant in there that
Wouldn't go to
has
Wesley Chapel.
liquor
They
by
said,
the
"Well,
drink,
that's one of the
which
things when they
is
were
different than
developing
beer and
the
wine.
bars
That
and all that.
Union County, remember, was dry. Then they got beer and wine, but that still doesn't
put
bring
restaurants in those
No, no, I know.
outparcels.
Yeah,
They
that
don't
have
do
any
that.
restaurants.
lots
Yeah.
where
But
it's
yes, we do have
viable.
liquor.
That's why there weren't
Yes.
any, like, I think it was a TGI Friday that wanted to go in there or something of that nature, and they couldn't because they didn't have liquor by the drink at that point.
Yep.
And it was passed after that.
Yeah, that's why they want to be in the towns, and they couldn't for years in Union County
Since you just gave me
Yeah.
that.
if it was unincorporated. But now they passed beer and wine in Union County, but it's still not liquor by the drink in Union County, the donut holes and stuff, so.
So to kind of pull this back full circle, do y'all need anything from us to better establish?
Or do you have any questions for us so that we haven't touched
I mean,
on?
we're gonna go back and work on a couple plans that show a 5,000 square foot village hall. You sure you want 2 stories, or is it 5? Is it 25 and 25, or is it 5,000?
No, it's like a little half, like,
Is
it's,
the main footprint 5,000?
I think it was
No,
like
no.
42.
I don't even think the total is.
I think it was
5,000.
42,
Yeah.
top and bottom, so the bottom was,
Okay, so
Let's
4,000.
confirm that, Rohit. Do you
Yeah,
mind, at some point, and get back to that?
Like
maybe 28
and. From
Yeah.
No, the
the
top-
elevation,
the top
it looks
was-
pretty
The
square.
top smaller than the bottom.
we
Yeah.
can give you the plans that we have
like
existing
it.
now. Now they're gonna change, obviously, because we're redoing that, but the
And-
same
Okay, so
footprint.
we'll overlay that into, we'll try to incorporate a village green, with the town hall, or village hall, sorry. Incorporated within that village green. A couple renderings, we'll start thinking about, and we can start thinking about what an MOU might look like with the, various components to that. We'll think about the architectural, but I think the main thing right now is to get the site plan nailed down, that everybody can kind of look at and say, okay, we're heading the right direction. And we can do that. I think we can do that next 2 weeks.
2 weeks enough time for
I
it?
think so. Yeah.
And-
We've got to
And
start.
obviously,
you know.
key, that one big bit, that one building that you want, that, I guess, the biggest amount, because we gotta get our heads wrapped around, is it 15, is it 20, what is it
Yeah.
that works for you guys, that's gonna make it enough where it brings in the draw, and then the other out parcels end up
But not too
benefiting from
big
that.
that the
Right.
village can't
Well,
swallow it.
I don't
The
think-
community can't swallow it, because the community doesn't want a big gigantic.
I look at it as it actually pulls people off the road to get in there to go do their shopping or whatever, and, there's a lot of opportunity, and I think, you'd be surprised about, not a grocery store, we can't call it a grocery store, but a specialty type
Specialty
store.
food market.
I don't think our Walgreens at Conley Place is 15,000 feet. I mean, you look at that building, and it's,
And where's that?
at Conley Place, the one we
Okay,
had
okay,
earlier,
yeah.
I think it's around 15,000
Okay.
feet. And I don't think the freestanding Walgreens is gonna draw the shoppers in the way that
Right.
we would want something where you're going
Yeah,
2 times a
and-
week, but they give you from a scale perspective.
That's big.
And quite frankly, stores like that may not even be allowable at Walgreens, because there is a Walgreens
And go to
already
the street
close
level.
by. or
There's 3
CVS.
Walgreens and
Right,
along
right.
Providence Road.
And that's where I'm saying use
Or
is gonna be
3
key too.
CVSs
So
or something.
if we can get, if we don't already have a list right now, and maybe a guideline would be the uses that we had for Publix.
We can get them that ordinance. We have its own special ordinance for that. So
Yeah, so it's a special
Yeah,
ordinance, that gives you a guideline of what we allow, and that's a busy intersection, so, I mean, but, you know, it's gonna get a lot more traffic and stuff, but the uses were, that's the guideline, we're not saying that's gonna be it in the final, right?
Yes,
Fair?
yes. So I would say whenever you guys are ready, obviously the sooner the better. But let us know and we'll get another special meeting together.
We keep it
Because
in mind.
I think this is
48
so much
hours.
easier to do it like this and like in the middle of like a regular meeting or even a work session because we've got so much other stuff going on. But
Right.
I would prefer to do like a special meeting, and if it needs to be in the evening, we can do that too, like what, you know, whatever works.
What works best for you guys?
Yeah.
That's
We're
good.
pretty flexible.
I was tired the other night, I didn't mean to, I was about,
That's
it's been a long day, and,
No,
but I
it's
know
fine.
about where you put swimming pools and water.
There you go, learn a lot,
And where
right?
potholes are.
But-
There you go.
Along with your business, just so
You
you
missed
know,
that.
I know
I've
we
got a
talked
history
about.
lesson for you.
But as far as uses go, I know we talked about those small businesses, those attorney firms, the insurance companies that can work out of places like this, that they don't need much, you know, but they need a kind of a home. But those are, I think, uses that are acceptable that aren't necessarily.
Because they're not high traffic, car traffic.
Right.
They're viable, they pay the rent, but they don't have like,
But once you're in there
Car
going to
traffic,
get
yeah.
your goods, whatever they are from the special, oh, there's an attorney firm there. Oh, there's a tax accountant there that. or
Oh, there's a Ben and
insurance
Jerry's.
person. Ben and Jerry's. You know, but,
Has anything been said today that concerns you?
I'm trying to figure out, y'all, my vision was putting the town hall back at the end of the property. And you've gotta have a retaining pond, maybe having the pond in front of it or whatever.
Yep.
As your water source, you put a fountain scooting out in the middle of it, if you could, I don't know if it could be designed like
I'm
that.
not married to any
but-
spot.
they just saw your drawing is what they were going
No,
on.
and I was just thinking, but I couldn't remember where we moved it around a lot, so I didn't know.
I,
George
He's
knows.
actually doing
I'm
it.
not married
That's
to
fine.
anything, so whatever you guys, like, I mean, I would say come with a couple options of where you think Village Hall may be good.
Okay.
You know, again, I'm
Yeah,
not
we're
married
very
to any
flexible.
spot.
the only thing that, with the retention pond, I know, you know, there's so many guidelines with retention ponds and all that stuff nowadays. One thing that, I don't want is I don't want a swampy one
Right.
that looks terrible. Now, I know Legacy Park actually has a well and they pump theirs water to keep it full, so they keep an ecosystem in there, they keep a fountain going, they have fish and all that kind of stuff, and it looks pretty, stays maintained all the time. It just depends on what your water sources are and what you can get to keep water in it. That one behind the Lowe's in Waxhaw looks terrible all the time. It's full of cattails, it's green, and they've done better than it was initially. It keeps some water in there, but
It all depends on how much infrastructure you're willing to put in. If you go to McKee Farms, I think that one in McKee looks nice. We've got a fountain in there.
There's a
It's
fountain,
an
and
amenity.
people go out there and
You turn it
eat
into-
and look at it,
Yeah.
or whatever,
right.
but,
And that's
But anyway.
that's kind of, I mean, I'm a little
and
concerned
the
about that. because I
topography
don't
may say
want-
where it has to be too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
Tim, I kind of initially agree with you that I thought that so you don't have to worry about what the backside looks like because you're pushing the town hall as far back on the property as possible that allows them to put the buildings they need. And then you have some sort of view that you're gonna, oh, as you drive by, look at that, that's sitting in the back there is the town hall.
Again, I'm not married to anything,
Okay.
so I'm 100% open to suggestions and, you know,
Well, thank
being
you.
very
I mean,
flexible. No,
I
thank
guess maybe
thank
the
you.
only thing that I would really, that sticks in my mind is to make the building at least visible from the road, wherever it sits, so that people understand where Village Hall is, so they don't search around for it.
It
But
needs to have an important presence within the project, so
Oh, yeah.
it's not just buried in a corner.
Right.
It needs to feel like it's integrated within the project,
Yeah,
and I think we can figure that
I think
all
you guys
out,
understand
know.
that.
Yeah.
And the BMP will want size to accommodate the entire development, so that may be something where we would need to help contribute some towards a storm pond to make sure that when they go in and develop, if they go first, that it's sized to accommodate
The whole
project,
deal.
so we're not going in there and, roads are one thing, but the pond needs to be sized in accordance to the
Right,
final.
you're not going back and having
Yeah.
to expand it, you know, whatever.
But that's a detail.
Or add a
Figure
different one.
Bob, did you have anything that you wanted to comment or ask?
Well, I'm listening intently to everybody and listening and seeing the wonderful photographs that are being put on here. And I think you said it right, Mayor, that, you know, we gotta really put our head around this. You know, I wanna thank Mr. Fincher for, you know, approaching us and giving us another opportunity. You know, this seems to be metamorphosizing as we go. When I first heard about maybe the location of where the village hall could go, I visualized it being from the road on Newtown. You could see it. It was there. And that was, I thought, when we talked about doing the Heritage District, making that the focal point. Being in, or being familiar with Stockbridge, Massachusetts, being familiar with Kennebunkport, Maine, you've got a quaint, you can't find anywhere shops in which people from the village congregate around that area. It's unique. For 12 years, I drove to the South Park Mall to my restaurant and passed that very development on Colony. And I thought, what a wonderful shopping area that seemed to accommodate the density housing, and without going into urban, it was somewhat urban suburban. Matthews, I've been there a zillion times, and I really saw and appreciated the way the library was and how there were unique businesses around it. Now, when I think of Marvin, I think of Marvin from the standpoint of, okay, I lived in a townhouse when I first moved here in 2006, in Blakeney, in the brand new townhouses, and they were building 31 Main, they were building Target, they were building everything across the way. And I wondered, oh, it's really suburban, urban. So now my only thought is, after looking at this, where are we as a community? In other words, we're rural. So what is it, what the buildings look like? What is the development gonna look like? I've always liked Reed's. I thought Reed's had sort of that same look that you just showed right now, Kiewah. You know, it was, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like a grocery store. It looks almost like a barn for what it's showing. So I think we just gotta put our head around it. And, if it's done right, I think it could be a really unique community. I'm just saying, I'm not married to anything. I'm looking at it as it's being formed. And, I guess it all comes down to what it's gonna cost us as a village.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments for council before we adjourn? And then finally, you guys, and if there's something that comes up that you should talk, obviously Christina, and then you can let us know and stuff, because I'd like to make this as transparent so nobody gets in any trouble, and there's still ideas to anyone listening into these meetings. We are going to be at a town hall meeting tomorrow night. I think we may reach this in the sense that we're still working with landowners and on properties potentially. We may identify that as a potential site, if that's okay with you. Other than that, I don't think we need to go any further, because we don't know what we don't know. But we are exhausting, I think, every landowner that is along this district, if you will. We'll just have to go from there, but encourage you to go to that meeting.
And it's where it is again, too?
It is at Forest Hills Church.
Forest Hill Church in Waxhaw.
Just north of the Teeter in Waxhaw.
Okay.
It's right there, and that's from 6. Unique, we have a guy talking, his name's Gene Stowe, he's talking about the history.
Yeah, he's at the office. my people are all in that book, you know that.
Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
The Ezell's and the Stevensons.
Okay, okay,
Stevensons went to Banks, and the Ezell's went to,
okay.
you know,
The other
Hatfields and
church.
McCoys.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, he is doing a half-hour talk with questions and answers, and then we're gonna go right into all the different things to kind of, trying to make this, what this council is doing, trying to be as transparent as possible with what's happening with roads, what's happening with the downtown district, the land use plan, the survey, all those things. Any questions you want to ask, you can either submit, and you can also zoom in on it too. So if you get our
6:30,
information,
7,
yeah,
what is it, 6:30?
The address is 8120 Kensington Drive.
okay.
Okay.
But we're hoping, we're doing a lot of advertising and a lot of reminders. I know our HOA was just announced that it was happening then, and I'm trying to encourage as many people to show up to that, because the more the better. I'm still slightly disappointed in how many people showed up. I mean, it even responded to the survey, quite frankly, when you think about how many are in our town. However, we have what we have, and we're going with what you know, majority of our town wants. And,
You build something real cool, make it a destination, you have more interest.
I agree 100%, so.
I hope that as this goes along, I don't know if you've come up with anything, I think the place where the meat station is at, that's called, what is that place called?
The what? The meat station?
What's that development called, or what's that corner called? It's something Farms.
Where you're talking about
Ray Farms?
Oh, Ray Farms.
Ray Farms.
Yeah.
Ray Farms, that there's something in it for, maybe that's Fincher Farms.
That's what I kept saying.
Fincher Farms,
Oh.
Fincher Farms at Marvin.
Oh.
Fincher Farms at
Yeah,
Marvin. I
like
just-
a
I just-
namesake that
Oh,
then
or-
continue.
yeah.
I know that's something that,
Ezell crowd.
I know
Yeah.
that's, you know, I'm hopeful that somewhere along in there, that with what you're proposing or potentially proposing for something for a village hall, that it also signifies what the family heritage throughout whatever it's named or whatever.
So whether it's Ezell or whatever that is, think about that too, because that would be something that, and that's something, quite frankly, even if we didn't get involved, that's something you could name. if
One
it-
thing cool to put on the town hall, and go back a little bit of history, would be mention people like the Cranes, the Yarbroughs, the Arteries, the Kells,
Mhm.
all those folks that, you know, they're all kind
Have
of
a part
farmers.
in
There's, but that's a great point
Dave
of saying, I mean,
Carr,
you
Joe
have,
Carr.
you've got, if you've got a conference room, it's the archery room, or you got this room in here, it's called the Kell room, and there's something that signifies, I mean, there's so many things that,
That would be.
I'm
usually
still
where
of the,
the-
I'm still of the small town thing, and I've said this before, is why don't we have Marvin Day? Why isn't there a parade that goes up the middle? Why isn't there a Miss Marvin? Why is there not banners and
Why
statues,
can't there
not
be a Mr.
statues?
Marvin?
What's that?
Why can't there be
He's
Mr.
sitting right
Marvin?
there. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I just
It
think,
goes back,
I
it goes
live,
back to what's the town that needs identity and a destination? And I meant to try to bring it, but my dad wrote an article about it when, my dad wrote, my mom, was the journalism major, but my dad was in the insurance business like myself, and he wrote an article about Marvin. And Mr. Cash, Steady Cash said, after he passed away, they went through his Marvin file, and that was the only article, or only thing they had about Marvin in there was that old Observer article.
From the caches?
Yeah, but
Okay.
there's an article in the Observer, and it talks about the history of it, some of these old names and stuff. It wouldn't be a bad,
I was gonna
Bad
say, if you
thing to
could
have.
make a copy and
I
send it to
brought
us.
a couple to meetings in the past. I thought I had them where I could get a hold of them and
Yeah.
pull right quick. I get it to Rohit,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Christine,
awesome.
somebody, y'all, but there's a lot of history here.
But
So-
to-
and that's
but we need,
what-
but we
To
need to.
Jamie's
we need to
point,
expand.
naming rooms after, you know, some
Yeah.
of that,
That's-
just,
At
that's a great
the Village
idea.
Hall, which is what we're talking about today.
And I will say to Kim's point, she's not married to where the village hall is. I think the one thing that we are married to is the fact that your appetite for moving this faster than, as opposed to kind of dragging it and, you know, creating our own speed bumps is certainly an appetite to me.
By the way, he's been waiting all along.
I know you, princess.
He's
I
been
know.
waiting all along.
Jamie, you don't know, but that's fine. As I've said, I want to do something to honor these folks that sacrificed a whole lot. They did up with a whole lot of stuff so we could go to college and stuff. My mom was the first one in her whole family that went to college. She went to Brevard, then went to Carolina. She she was women's editor for the Observer when she got out of Chapel Hill. So that a lot of cotton had to be picked in her school even back then during the war. So yeah, we got there's a lot of, you know, we ain't left the place, and so there's a reason some people want to live in Martin. So we just want to give them another one.
Yep, I love that.
That's all.
I love that.
I'm married to that.
Terrific.
Right.
Well,
All right.
Thank you guys very
that being
much.
said.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion. Thank you.
All right, good meeting.
Good deal.